Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 6, Small Folk. We're here to talk about latest episode of House of the Dragon as per normal, and joined by the same but very special guest, Alyssa from Alyssa G Reviews. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me once again. It's really fun coming in here every week and talking about House of the Dragon, and looking forward to talking about this one.
And also Darrin from D's Reviews. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, always thrilled to come and speak with you and Alyssa about the show. So, yeah, let's dive in.
In Westeros, Dragon Train You. I gotta say with that accent.
In Westeros, Dragon Train You. Yeah. For the old people in the crowd. Yeah.
Oh, was that what's his face? That old 80s Russian comedian?
Yeah.
Said?
Yakov Smirnov. It was in Russia. This does this, it's always the opposite.
Okay, now I get it. I didn't actually get the reference until just now. So okay, thanks for. But I do remember.
I was just gonna do how not to train your dragon, but that I was like, wait a minute, maybe we could add a twist on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was that or the God, I can't remember. Those other movies they're having with that one guy who's supposed to be from Kazakhstan or something.
Yeah.
And
it's leaving my head. I actually
photobomb like Rudy Giuliani or something.
Oh yes, I mean you gotta love him for that. You gotta love him for that.
Are you talking about Borat?
Yeah, Borat. Yeah, that's the one. I was thinking maybe you were quoting Borat, but I was like, no.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Borat's definitely almost a variation of the Yakov character. Just a little more racist,
Yeah. All right, so we're actually here to talk about House of the Dragon, not Borat. So let's start with the what you thought overall of the episode. Alyssa, you said you had a lot to say about the episode. So what was your overall thoughts on the episode?
Oh, I just thought that there were a lot of interesting scenes that I have a lot to talk about. But overall, I would say that I do like it better than last week's episode. But I'm still feeling a little bit of that frustration of we're not the wheels spinning a little bit. Maybe I don't know if the wheels are still spinning, but I just feel like I wish we were moving a little bit quicker than we have been. I agree with what you said, Mark, in your review, where you said you probably could have just combined 5 and 6, and I don't think would be the worst idea. But at the same time, I do like that. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, especially for the Daemon storyline. I know that's frustrated a lot of people. And it's just been dragging on and dragging on. I haven't been as frustrated by it, but I do like at least I think we see an end to it. That I think we start to see a little bit of movement to it. And great news, everyone! We got a timeline on the boat. They said 4 days for the boat to be finished. And actually, I don't know if the different storylines are synced up time-wise, because then there was a point where Alice River says just wait 3 days, and then I think the 3 days passed. So if that was synced up to that, then maybe there's only 1 day left. We might see the boat.
So if the boat's not ready by next episode, I'm gonna riot.
So we might see the boat in the water before the season is over. So that's promising. So where I do have hope that I think the last 2 episodes we're gonna get somewhere. But that said, I still like there's a lot of really interesting episodes or scenes, rather, a lot of good character stuff that we can dive into when we get into it. And my username, my handle this week is a big scene that surprised me, because that is not in the books at all. But the love scene there between Myceria and Rhaenyra at the end, that was a surprising thing that I'm sure we'll talk about when we get there. So yeah, interesting things to talk about. But let's get moving now for the last 2. We've only got 2 left, so let's move on a little bit.
So what what Brandon said about your username is that you wish, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't wish because I might get killed by a dragon or demon or something.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous. Yeah, being Rhaenyra's girlfriend, that's dangerous territory.
But
But
that's
yeah,
what gives it its excitement, you know.
really,
Yeah,
true.
I mean, I've definitely, I'm still right with you. In fact, I told my wife last night before we went on how we had talked last week that you said you were hoping that this whole Dragon Riders bit was happening by episode 4. And she was like, "Oh yeah, that would have been so much better because that's the interesting stuff. It's like that's what we're grabbing onto." And my daughter was actually has stopped watching the show because she was just like, "There's nothing really happening." Now that's not true, of course. There are things happening, and I think part of the issue is like all the scenes, all the moments are good. There is stuff being done. There is story being told. There is, it's well done, but it's almost like someone had difficulty in their editing process where you've got to shorten out that you got to take it from 700 words to 500 words. And you're like, yeah, but all this stuff is good and really important. And it feels like it's dwelling in that. So, I mean, I agree. It's definitely things are feeling stretched out, and I think there's a little bit more of efficiency of storytelling that could be told. But again, with that, there's also great stuff happening in almost every scene where this is interesting and I like this and this, this is going on. It just feels like it's all going an extra beat or two too long. And that's really my only criticism of it. But there's also parts in this moment where I get teared up and I was like, yeah, finally, we're getting some stuff going, So I got, there are some great, exciting parts in this episode. But yeah, I would agree. If they had just taken the last two and smushed them together.
Yeah.
I mean, even almost half of this season and just kind of like tighten things up a little bit, I think we could be satisfactorily at this point in the season a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah. Oh, I do have to add too. There was one scene where I was like, "Yes!" and I was like cheering. There's which we'll get to, but
yeah,
one.
I actually can't think of what scene that is.
When Rhaenyra finally slapped one of her stupid.
Oh!
I was like, yes.
I honestly thought she was just going to stab him in the neck. I mean, maybe that was like, I hope she does, but she can't, of course. But I'm like,
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, that was long overdue.
That was a long time coming.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I was trying to figure out the name of that dude, but I couldn't.
Oh, I heard it, but I forgot it.
Celtigard? Lord Celtigard?
I think it is Celtigard. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Because I saw a bunch of the names, but I couldn't pick out which one was which.
I think he might be Celtigard. Yeah.
So Annoyance, Alfred Annoyance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sir,
Al Annoyance. All right, so yeah, my overall thoughts on the episode is yes, as Alyssa stated, I think that this episode kind of could have been combined with the previous episode. There was good stuff in it, but again, a lot of times I was like, come on, I'm one of the people that are getting really tired of the Damon stuff. I think he's been having these like since episode 3. I think every episode we get more of his delusions, and I think they really could have, tightened this up. I would have rather seen more like political stuff in the Riverlands of him negotiating with different houses and maybe the battles, rather than him like having an excuse to get cameos from actors from season 1 to show up every episode, and then him going slowly mad. I think that they could have really sped all that up. And yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think I might like this episode better than last week's, but it's hard to say. They were both kind of the same for me. I think there were maybe more good stuff that happened here, but it was just, there were a lot of scenes. I was like how many times do we need to see Rhaenyra standing out on that balcony looking over the beach? Like she does, like just do something. Like you're always just standing on that freaking balcony on the beach. It's almost as bad as Corlys in the ship, which at least we didn't get that this episode. But anyway, I
No,
think
it's
we
like
did.
the old network shows where they got the one plate scene and they just keep reusing it like every other episode or so on, Battlestar Galactica attack on the Cylons, or
Yeah. No, where it wasn't Corlys and Ellen, that was by the ship.
Yeah, I think it was. So yeah,
and they said that's when they said the ship will be done in 4 days.
Oh, right.
Someone's gonna firebomb that ship. That's what I think is gonna happen.
It's like as soon as it leaves dock, it's gonna
be some dude. My cabbages, my ship,
All right. So anyway, we'll jump into the episode. So we start with the Lannister forces arriving at night. Look this up, Golden Tooth, which is Darrin, do you want to see the map where this one is?
Oh yes, I'm always happy to see the maps. I think they changed the opening actually this week too, wasn't there?
Yeah, they added the dragon thing. Yeah. Hold on, I can never find it. Where is it? StreamYard, paint entire screen, video. It's not coming up. Oh, well, I'll look for it while you guys. Oh, maybe it's not it? No, that's not it. All right, whatever. Anyway, I'll have to look for it later. But anyway, so they arrive at Golden Tooth, which is like sort of at the edge of the Westerlands, entering the Riverlands, and so it's a vassal of the Lannisters, and so they show up and with the huge army, and they have lions in cages. The Lannisters in Game of Thrones never had lions in cages, so I think they just want to show off more in these things. But they were like, the Lord that greeted them was like, oh, so you're just stopping by on your way, and you're going to the battle. We have men will go into battle with you, and they're like, nah, we're just gonna chill here for a while. And then the guy was like, oh, it's like really unwanted house guest vibe going on there. But they was like, no, we're gonna wait until Aemon comes out with his dragon. So go send word to him, fetch Aemon, tell him to get his ass out here. Yes, and we'll see. I'll get more into the rest of the council scene later, but I just want to touch on Aemon's reaction, which is I love how we get the hard cut to, what, they should have fetching me like a dog? They're too lazy to go out there and fight themselves. And it's what's the Lannister's dude name again? Is it Jason Lannister?
Jason.
Yeah. He's so arrogant, like from back from season 1. We see him so arrogant. He's like, oh, we'll wait for the dragon here. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting way to open the episode. So Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciated seeing the lion in the cage, because they got lions all over there was lion this, lion that, and I like that touch that the Lannisters actually bring lions to battle with them. I mean, I think maybe lions, they didn't do that by the time Game of Thrones was happening. Maybe this was an old thing, but that was a nice little touch. Yes, I think Jason Lannister was being an arrogant prick, but I can understand his point of view, especially if he got word of what happened at Rook's Rest, which I'm assuming he did, like how many people were just fried by dragons. We do know that they are trying to go up against Daemon, who has a dragon. So I actually think that that's a pretty reasonable request. That like, well, we're not doing shit until we also have a dragon. Like I don't want all my men fried. So I think. Even though, yes, he was being an arrogant prick, and I can kind of see Aemon's reaction, I also don't think it was unreasonable. It's just, I think, it's more of his mannerisms, more of his delivery. This guy's kind of a dick, but he doesn't want all his men to get fried by Daemon's dragon, so fair enough to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice establishment. I kind of miss the old Lannisters or the younger Lannisters. Forget all the timeline stuff. The group from Game of Thrones, they had a little more regalness. All these guys just seem to be like annoying pricks. So I don't know. I think that maybe that's just the perfect reputation for the Lannisters, in which case they're doing an excellent job. Um, yeah, it's just showing how there's so much arrogance and there is so much real self personality, self importance kind of going on with everybody, especially on the Green Council side. And this is just another element of it. Nobody is really listening, everybody is just jockeying for position. And it's probably what's going to end up just really challenging, I think, the Greens more. But on the other hand, I also love how Aemond is reacting to everything. To me, he is probably the most, I mean, he's still one of the more interesting of the characters. But I think what that scene also shows is his kind of like quiet decisiveness. While he is angered at being disrespected, when he has an idea or plan, he just executes it and he doesn't really care what anybody else says. And that is in stark difference to Aegon, that just seemed to be kind of like goofing off and reacting off of everything. Aemon seems to actually be planning and thinking and scheming within his own mind, which I think again makes it much more interesting and much more dangerous. In a way, really the only big threat on the green side.
All right, so finally got the map working. Yeah, so that's Golden Tooth there. And
right by Castamere.
yeah. And it was Castle Rock. Yeah, Castle
Yeah.
Rock is there. So it's not too
Yeah,
far away. River runs right over there. So it's closer to the western side of Harrenhal.
Yeah. Yeah, River Run doesn't seem too far away from there at that point. But yeah, this is, of course, a long time before the reigns of Castamere, because that was Tywin who did that.
Oh, that was Tywin who did it. That's right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is in his young days. So yeah, Castamere still exists, and looks like it's right near Golden Tooth.
All right. You gotta play the music during the map. But anyway, so then we get to the council scene with Aemon, and this is very interesting. Aemon just likes to cut people off. Like whenever someone like brings something out there, like, oh, well, maybe we should do this. It's like, I think you should go out and go over there and fight. Or like when Alyson was saying something, he just cut her off and talked to someone else entirely, just ignored her. And Kristen Cole said, I think the Dowager Queen brings up a good point. It's like, yeah, you should be leaving. Get out of here. So it seems like Aemon is different than Aegon, because Aegon liked Cole and chose him for his hand, and it seemed like Aemon was getting along with Cole, like in the first couple episodes, and they were plotting to get together to do the Rook's Rest thing. But I don't know. I think like it seems like Aemon doesn't really like Cole anymore, or out of favor, maybe because Cole's like traumatized from his experience in Rook's Rest, where Aemon doesn't seem to give a shit. And he still wants to press the advantage. He wants to attack, and he wants to make an alliance with the Triarchy, which is interesting because in the books it was Otto Hightower who did this, and so it doesn't. That threw me off. There was Aemon who would do it in the show. But yeah, he wants to do it, and everyone's saying, no, it's a terrible idea because they're treacherous. We can't trust them. They're basically pirates. And he, again, cuts them off and ignores them and changes the subject, and is like, wants to send Kristen Cole out to attack. He's like, we don't have the numbers. We can't face Daemon. It's like, the West can fight. The Lannisters come from the West, you come from the East, and he fights on two fronts. But it's like what you were mentioning before. The problem with the dragon is, and this is interesting because it's like it changes the whole way that the strategic battles are fought over Westeros in House of the Dragon as compared to Game of Thrones. Well, particularly before Daenerys came with their dragons anyway. It changes having dragons there because they only basically have one dragon. They have Vagar. I mean, there's Dreamfire, but Helena never rides him, so that's kind of not an issue. And um, Darrion, Darrion or something his name is, and he has a dragon, but he's all the way in Old Town. So they basically only have one dragon, so Vagar can't be everywhere at once. So this is why I think Jason Lannister's request, even though reasonable, was a bit unreasonable because Vagar can't go absolutely everywhere at once. He kind of had to choose his battles. But on the other hand, like they can't expect to win the battle against Daemon with his dragon. So it just and Rhaenyra is actually having the same problem with lack of dragons because she's not allowed to use hers, and Bella's and Jace's are kind of small, no match for Vagar. So they're and Damon's off doing whatever the fuck he wants, and so they're kind of stuck. So it's an interesting landscape with all the dragons. But anyway, that's kind of an aside. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, Aemon is doesn't seem to give a shit about anything. And like I said in my review, I think he's just as bad as a king as Aegon, but in different ways. I don't think he's any better. Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh no, he's definitely evil. um, and you're right. He cuts people off to dismiss them. Your words are not necessary. I shouldn't have even paused in my speaking because this is the next thing that's going on. And it's a quick way to shut them up. I think he has fallen a bit with Christian Cole because I think from a battle standpoint, they're more connected. But because Christian seems to be affected to the damage of the king, Aemon's not seeing him as like, oh, you didn't come over right to my side to see which is the better move to make. You don't understand what's happening, so you don't get to stay with me. You're not as important. I need to move on with people that I can trust or people that I can control. And I think that's exactly how Aemon is measuring every interaction that he is having. If you are standing against him in any way, he will cut you off and send you off to line or do something to put you to heel to remind you that your position is not as secure or as important. I think Aemon is, in the way it's the end of the scene when Mom is kind of like looking at him, haven't you avenged all of the ills of your childhood? Haven't you gone and sought off retribution? That really is Aemon's only drive, and he sees it everywhere. I don't think that he is a good king in any way, but he definitely has a lot more thought in his decisions and more intention than I think Aegon did, which seemed more of just like, your frat king trying to have a good time. So, I really do love the scene. I really love how he just maneuvers everyone around. And sending Christian Cole up and doing land battles and then meeting on his dragon on Vagar at the right time seems much more of a smart plan because Vagar also has to defend King's Landing from Rhaenyra, and you never know what your enemy is going to do. So I think the fact that they have the biggest dragon, but they only have one of them really could be an interesting point for strategy for Rhaenyra if they can get their stuff together, which obviously goes into a lot more of the other side of the story when we get to it.
Yeah, I heard on another video the point of view that Aemon might be shutting out Kristen Cole and then sending him off because he knows that Kristen Cole knows what he did. Kristen Cole's not talking, but he could if he, if he pisses him off. So he's like, he wants to get him, out of the way. And I don't think that is a bad theory. Aemon definitely is someone who, it's his way or the highway, as you guys are talking about. He's cutting people off. He's like, this is what we're doing. I don't care what you say. This is what we're doing. Whereas Aegon would just kind of be like a little whiny. He's like, "Hey, I want to go into Garen, oh no!" And they would be like, "Well, King, Your Grace, we can't because of this and this," and then he would be convinced. Or in one case, Aemon just kind of did whatever the fuck he wanted without telling Aegon. That happened as well. So Aemon or Aegon was a bad king in that way, but Aemon, not listening to what anyone else says, I think is his fault or his flaw, and it's curious to me that he wants Otto Hightower back, because Otto Hightower is not someone he is going to be able to control. Otto Hightower is going to have his own agenda, his own opinions, and want to do things his way. So I was just wondering if that was just because he wants to get rid of Kristen Cole. Like, Otto Hightower just makes the most sense. He's just he's been the hand of the king before. But I think that's a curious play. Given his style of wanting to just control everybody and tell them to shut the fuck up and you're doing what I do, that's not going to happen with Otto. So this is, by the way, also a change from the books. He keeps Kristen Cole in the books. So also Otto Hightower doesn't disappear in the book either. So we'll see if Otto makes it back to King's Landing. What's going on out there? But yeah, so I think Aemon is his style of leadership. I don't know if that's going to work. And yeah, I don't know. Everyone is like the triarchy. Well, that's a bad idea. It's definitely really risky, but he doesn't seem willing to listen to, why this is risky. Maybe what things we should consider. He's just like, no, we're just doing it. Fuck you all. So, yeah, and I think it is about control for him. It is about having something that he never had as a kid. He never had control. He was always made fun of. And you're right. I'm pretty sure we're probably going to talk about that Alicent scene separately, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we are.
So we'll dive too much into that. But yeah, what Darrin pointed out as her asking about his, when are you going to get over your wounds from your childhood, basically. And I think that does motivate everything he does. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, something that just occurred to me while you're talking is that I think maybe Aemond is Captain Jellicoe. He's like, I don't want to hear about it. Get it done.
Get this damn fish out of here.
That's why he's a terrible leader. But it's interesting because they were thinking about, apparently they've been trying to contact the Greyjoy to make an alliance because they need the sea power because the Valerians overpower them, but the Greyjoys apparently have been ignoring them. And it was interesting that one dude was like, maybe an alliance if a marriage to the Dowager Queen. She's like, no, out of the question. And Aemon apparently didn't care about that because he didn't have anything to say about that. But yeah, when someone like brought up, hey, once the triarchy are in our waters, they could like attack us and they'd be dangerous. And he like changes the subject. But that's like a good point. But yeah. So we get to the next scene where Aemon, calls his mother and says, "Oh yes, by the way, you're fired." Like, it's like, what do you do here again? Oh yes, well that was helpful before, but your service is not required. I think you'd be more interested to return your interest to more domestic concerns. Now, I heard some people suggest that when he said that he was talking about banging Kristen Cole, but I don't think so. I don't think he knows about that, because I think if he knew, I don't know. I think he might try to kill Cole or something, or I don't know. I just don't think he knows about that. But I think it was more of I didn't take it as that. I took it as you belong in the kitchen or something like that, like a very misogynistic, sexist move. And it's funny, in the behind the scenes, the after show thing, someone was saying that they thought that Eamon was just being very matter of fact and very practical, but it didn't seem that way to me. It seemed like he was being emotional. It seems like he was like, well, you're a shitty mother, so fuck you and get out of here. And it's interesting that she tried to reach out to him by saying that it happened, your past transgression's been sufficiently avenged yet, and he just ignores her and pushes. Again, that's his signature move, is just ignore people and just pushes away and say thank you for your service, and I'll leave. So yeah, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I got real Office Space vibes. So what do you do here exactly? Well, I take the TPS reports down to the. I don't remember the exact line. It's been years since I've seen Office Space, but it was like, I take the TPS reports down to the next guy, and he takes it to the next guy. Well, couldn't we just cut out the middleman? Yeah, real Office Space vibes. But I definitely think it was completely purely out of emotion. I think it might have even been Ryan Condal, the showrunner, who said that, and I kind of, I mean, he's the showrunner, but I didn't interpret it that way at all. I definitely think he has mommy issues. As I mentioned earlier, I think that he is taking control that he never had, and one person that he has never had control over in his life is his mother. So this is probably really satisfying for him to take this control over her. And I think there's probably some sexism in it too, but I think it's mostly like, fuck you, mom. You were a terrible mom. Get out of here. Like, to me, that's 100% how I read it. I saw that in the after show too, and I'm like, that's not how I read it. It was just like matter of fact. I'm like, oh well, we don't really need you around here anymore. Like, I feel like it definitely came from a place of hurt, and could potentially have something to do with the fact that he has probably picked up on the fact that she, if not knows, strongly suspects that he is behind what happened to Aegon, and maybe it makes him uncomfortable to have her around, knowing that too. So that could that could be a factor in it as well. But yeah, I'm sorry, the showrunner is wrong about his own show. I'm sorry, because it's just not how I saw it at all. But I don't know.
Isn't all misogyny based in anger and frustration? I mean, really, ultimately, hate you women for being women. Get out of here because you're women. I mean, I think that there is definitely some of the resentment towards mom that's going on here. And yes, there's also it's better to get you out of the way because you are going to ask questions and you're going to be meddlesome. So let us dismiss you, for you are a woman and doesn't need to be here. In a way, misogyny is the excuse to clear out his frustrations with his mom in that sense. Because I think, again, through this episode, they're really underlining that, as we see later on with Rhaenyra. So, and I think that the way that it is so literally dismissive, I think is kind of underlines that. I don't even want to listen to you. As for effectively firing her, this is kind of like what? Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, and with a smile is have a nice day while they slide the knife in between your ribs type kind of thing. He was very respectful. He used all the right terminology. Again, it's like you could see that this is someone who's actually paid attention to statecraft and is using the language against. The crown is appreciative of all of your efforts. We are forever in your debt. Thank you. Come again. I mean, it was perfect. And it was, I think the fact that it was done matter-of-factly, again, is the disguise to try and make it, this isn't personal. You're just a woman. Get out of here. But it's also done with that smile in the F you kind of way. And I think that Eamon delivered that little touch perfectly. So misogyny mixed with dismissing a potential troublemaker on top of just being a douchebag. So, perfect combination there.
Yeah, no, I get the impression a part of why he dismissed her was because she was counseling caution a lot. She was saying, "Oh yeah, let's not go battle first. Oh, let's consider these things," and he just didn't want to hear any of that shit. Seems like he just wants a bunch of yes men around him.
Well, I think in a way he wants chaos. He may want to rule over a burning battlefield. I think that's probably why he doesn't mind with the pirates. One, he's got Vagar, so in his mind, he is, the death ray that can float over and burn whole armies. The arrogance in with that. But I think he also doesn't entirely care about the chaos and mess that's caused. I think he sees that's what life is about. And so I think he revels in it a little bit more. I think he's there for the battle and doesn't really care about the peace.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Chaos is a ladder.
Yeah, just thinking that. But he's not really the little finger symbol. That's hilarious.
But love is a battlefield.
So, all right. So then we get to Mr. Sir burnt to a crisp. Soon to be. It's interesting that we have the council meeting. It starts with a shot of Corliss, and he puts on the hand of the queen pendant. So I love, because we talked about last week that we hoped that they wouldn't spend like several more scenes of him being mulling it over. I love we just jumped to immediately. He takes it, but he doesn't. I thought we would see him in action more, like he would function more, make suggestions, but basically it was just a meeting to like call in Sir Stefan Darkling and explain like, okay, so we need dragons and blah blah blah, and here's our plan. We want to put you on a dragon. And so his reaction was just like, is interesting, because at first he was like, but dragons are gods and I'm just a man. So I thought he was going to go in the direction of, oh, I don't deserve this, don't give it to me. But instead he's like, it's a great honor and thank you. Oh, this is so great. And Renaer tried to be like, you're probably gonna die, right? That your life is in extreme danger. And I don't think he really heard that. He was more of like, oh wow, this is so amazing, I'm gonna be a dragon rider. And so they go to the dragon pit, and I think that this was a really really good scene, very atmospheric. I love the way it was shot and everything about it, and just the dread that hung in the air, and how and I was wondering if he actually knew how to speak High Valerian, or if they just taught him certain words, because it seemed like they were definitely coached ahead of time, which would be a great idea to coach him ahead of time on how exactly to train your dragon. But it was interesting that he did look a little scared, and of course there's a giant fucking dragon sitting right in front of you. Like, most people in their right minds would be scared, but a lot of people were speculating that's why he got burnt, is because he showed fear. And they even said, like, they had the Valerian people like, do not show fear. So, and I do think he was trying his best. Like, he didn't look like he was shitting his pants. I definitely would be if there was a dragon in front of me. So it seemed like he was like doing a decent job. And then they had Sea Smoke kind of bent his neck down, so everyone might think, oh, he's letting him gonna ride, but then goes up, fuck you all, and burns him. And it was interesting that because that one dragon trainer got burned, and he just, while he was burning, he slit his wrist or his neck. And I think that was some people were speculating why he did that. I think it's easy because burning to death sucks. It's painful. That seems quite obvious to me. But yeah, and that was and everyone was horrified about it. So yeah, that was a really powerful scene. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, and Brandon points out in the chat that the singing was beautiful. I recognize it was the same tune that Damon did last year when he.
You are my fire.
Yeah, not that. No, it's that Valerian like chant. I do think it's really pretty, and Damon did it in season 1. Well, I think it was Vermithor that he was summoning at that point. But it was just all of them singing. So I like the setup for this scene. I like the tension. Um, that yeah, and I don't know. We'll talk about what happens with Sea Smoke at the end of the episode, because I think that particular person was also scared shitless. So I don't know if that's the only factor involved. Um, what I took by the end of this episode that Sea Smoke's wanted to choose his own writer. He's like, I don't want this dude. I want this other dude. Like, I don't know if even if Sir Darkland was not showing any fear at all, I don't know that he would have been able to get on to Sea Smoke. But we can only speculate. We don't know what dragons think, what's going through Sea Smoke's mind. But I did really like the scene, and just how it was set up and how they kind of set it up to where he's bending down and like give you a little bit of hope. I mean, I didn't have hope because I read the book. I know what he was going to get burned, but if you didn't, like, he gives you hope. It gives you a little bit of hope. Oh, is he going to do it? Maybe he could pull this off. And then he lifts up and just. So everything about the scene was great. And I was almost wondering, as you were talking, Mark, is if maybe these dragon trainers, maybe they're like trained to do that. It's like if you ever get burned, maybe that's what they teach you in dragon training school. Like, if you ever get burnt, just get it over with. Because just trust me, you will be way better off. I actually liked that they included, and it wasn't just Sir Darkland that got burned. It was that guy too, just to show just how dangerous the dragons actually are, and just what a danger it is to try to ride these dragons. So I thought the scene was very effective, and I really enjoyed it.
Yet here at Westy's Dragon School, we train all of our trainers that it can take up to 90 seconds to burn to death from dragon fire. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to hurt a lot. So if you got a moment, just, take yourself out. Really, you're going to feel better about it. I mean, for a shorter period of time, you know what I mean? I don't know why I do those things.
Yeah, so they teach how to train dragon in New Jersey, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. It's inspirational, folks. It's just really off the top of my head.
Now I'm picturing watching a video of this. A VHS tape that says "How to Train a Dragon." Welcome to Soul's Training.
Keep a sharp knife with you in case you got to take yourself out. Again, this is where I got kind of excited. And I love the fact that they do bring Corlys in. They do it. He walks in. Sir Darkwing Duck there is just ready to get on it. And I love his excitement and his commitment. And he was just like, I've dreamed since I was a child that I could be a dragon rider. They said you never could be, but now I can be. I'm so, I was really thrilled, and I appreciated his forthrightness. And he was like, I don't care about the danger. He's like, committed, excited, willing to do this. So, of course, I turned to my wife and I said, now, because of this, by rules of writing, he has to die immediately, right? Was not surprised by the whole die, of this, and how much, in fact, I do think his fear and trepidation was not helpful in the whole process. It's funny because what I felt when Sea Smoke decided, like, ha, fooled you, sucker, you ain't getting on, was that he never regarded the dragon himself. There was no communication. He wasn't talking to the dragon or anything like this. He was just doing commanding and focused on getting on that thing as the dragon was dismissed. And it's like, dragons are a little smarter, man. They're not a thing. It's not a pet. We're working together. I can crush you. See, I can set you on fire. Look at my eyes here. My eyes are up here, not back here, up here. So it's interesting, and I only say that just because I think it's interesting later on with what happens. I think there was a much more of a definite, while there was fear, there was also regard, and also from somebody that wasn't hopeful to get on it, but maybe more someone who is willing to take opportunity when it's offered to him, no matter the cost. And I think that might have been the biggest difference here with Sir Darkwing here. I know it's just the name that's stuck in my head. Crispified, so cool. Burnt to a crisp. Yeah,
Sir Darkwing Duck. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brandon, for the super chat. Very much appreciated. He says my handle deserves a reward. Well, thank you so much. Burnt to a crisp. Anyway, so where are we now? Oh, so yes, we get more Damon having more visions yet again. I mean, to be fair, it was kind of interesting that he was seeing Viserys. It was replaying the events of Viserys kicking him out and of King's Landing and removing him as his heir and making Rhaenyra the heir, which would be an important event in his life. And I saw some videos do like a side by side on this, play the scene from season 1, comparing it to this scene, and Viserys sounds much more hurt and just painful and hurt in this scene, whereas in the original scene he sounded more angry, and I think that was on purpose because I think it illustrates how much Damon regrets hurting his brother in this way and how he wish he didn't do that, and how when he tries to leave, the doors are shut and he's jiggering and he's like stuck. So it's kind of, I heard theories on symbolism of what that symbolizes, that he feels like he's stuck in that moment or that he's kind of trapped and can never undo hurting his brother in that way, and it's showing the things is haunting him. But then he always wakes up to Sir Simon Strong. This happens like every time he's having these nightmares. And this time he goes batshit and like pulls a knife on him and is like, "You're doing this to me." I'm like, so you think the feeble old man is the one doing these mind tricks with you and not the actual witch who gave you shit to drink? Like, I don't know his reasoning there. Doesn't seem very, very smart on his part. But yeah, so that was, I think it was a long time coming of him losing his shit. But again, should have happened earlier. I don't think they needed to drag this out as long, but I guess they're finally getting somewhere at least. But Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Again, my exact thought, I was like, oh, it's more Damon ghost story stuff. Yay. And yeah, there is important stuff. Again, he is seeing all of his regrets and his dark times, and the whole I'm trapped in these memories and stuff like this. But what I actually found the interesting little bit in this was while he was threatening Sir Strong there's a point where Simon just starts going, shh, 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 shh. Like, almost, which essentially be that you say like that Simon might be actually doing all of this, because he does mention like, oh, you're not getting enough sleep, it could be this, it could be that. But in that moment of threat, in that moment of fear, it's almost like he was commanding him to step back with his little witchy lord ways. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what it was, but I found it definitely an interesting character choice, that at a point where Damon could potentially slice up your nose or face or something, and he is a character that has been so reactive and fearful and hands-offish that he makes an actual like aggressive move to command Damon to calm himself, to shush. And I just found that interesting. It's one thing I'm really curious to see how they're going to wrap this little thing up, and if they're going to give any odd other causes for his manipulations, because it certainly seems like, at least at this point, Strong has some awareness of the effect that Harrenhal is having on him. Whether or not he's behind it or not, I'm not entirely sure.
See, I totally didn't read it that way at all. To me, I read it. Strong had no idea why the hell he started, because he even says to him, "Is like, oh, I think you haven't gotten enough sleep." Um, so I feel like he has no idea what's going on, and that he clearly is not behind it. But that was just my interpretation.
Yeah, and that could be the case. Again, there was just that moment where he was just like, shh, shh. I was like, well, that feels like an odd reaction for you to do to the Mad King with a knife in your face. But I mean, maybe you tried all the other stuff, and this was just like, well, let me try this. Maybe this will save my life.
I didn't even notice that, him doing that. I didn't. I'll have to watch it again. I did not catch that at all. Um, but so I don't know how to interpret it since I didn't see it. But I did. I kind of probably lean a little toward Mark. I think, although he maybe has an idea. I mean, maybe this kind of thing happens to other people in Harrenhal. Maybe he know. I mean, if it is indeed Alice Rivers who's behind it, maybe he knows that she can do this sort of thing. So he might have some idea, but I don't think he has anything to do with it uh, at all. But I can see how Damon would get that idea, because he's always the one who seems to bring him out of it by waking him up. It's like, what are you doing to me? But I don't know. And it's interesting. I know we haven't talked about the Alice Rivers scene yet. I'm sure we'll get to it, but it is interesting why he trusts her and after going after Simon Strong. But yeah, I didn't read. I don't think that he has anything to do with it at all. But he may be aware of what's happening. Maybe or maybe not. But I don't think he would know like specifically what Damon is seeing. Now, as for getting back to the Viserys bit, I do have to admit I do like seeing the season 1 characters come back. I do also think we could have gotten to this point a little sooner, where he does seem to be, finally addressing his guilt. And I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know that the build up to this was the best. Like this, it kind of just seems like vision. All of a sudden, I'm feeling guilty. Like I don't know that. It just feels like they could have put these visions all together in a more cohesive way, and they could have gotten to this a little bit sooner. That said, I did enjoy the scene, and I also saw those videos that showed like the contrast of where Damon's perception of it is that is Viserys is sad and heartbroken, which exemplifies his guilt. So I did like that. I think maybe this whole thing could have been handled a little better, but I still enjoy this particular scene.
So following that, Damon runs out, and he's pretty much has the attitude of fuck this shit, I'm out of here, and goes to his dragon to leave. But Alice Rivers is there and sort of intercepts him. And I don't know. I think it's very clear if anyone's responsible for it is her, because I don't know. I feel like Simon Strong doesn't have any idea what's going on, where she seems to know so much about him. She knows all these details that no one could possibly know. And she gives him weird shit to drink and everything like that. But the way that she taunts him again, I've heard some other channels like theorize that she's secretly working for Aemond or the Greens or whatever, and is trying to sabotage him and make him go crazy. But I totally don't get that at all. I completely disagree. I think it's clear that she is trying to feed this guilt and get him to realize the folly of what he's doing by disobeying Rhaenyra and by coveting the throne for himself. And that's what the visions all seem to be leaning to. And that she even specifically says that in this scene. She says, the throne is not a prize to be won, it's a burden to Barry. And she seems like completely aware of the vision that she just has. Like in the last week's episode, she referenced the whole mother thing. And by the way, I think my video, our discussion last week got demonetized, I think, because we were talking about that. That was the episode. But anyway, but yeah. So it was interesting that she kind of talks him into staying, and he gets kind of vulnerable with her. It is weird why he trusts her more than anyone else. That part I don't really quite understand. Where he says, give me, I want your counsel. It's like, oh, the great Damon asking for help. It's like, no, counsel. I was like this, but then following that, he specifically says, help me. And she says, don't worry about it. In 3 days' time, the problem will fix itself. Because she was talking about how, Grover Tully is in the way, and that he needs to step aside because the River Lords are never going to do anything. They're too discombobulated, too chaotic. They're never going to do anything unless the Tullys sort of bring them together. So maybe it was a bad idea for him to be such a dick to Oscar Tully in the previous episode, but we shall see about that. So anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, no, I just found it interesting that he goes out to Atlas and he's like, somebody's poisoning me. I don't know who it could be. Somebody's poisoning me. Here, take this drink. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree. I think it's super obvious that she's behind it. I still think Simon, while he may not know the specifics, he may know like Alice has these powers. He may know that Harrenhal has these powers. So he may have some idea of what's happening.
So, just real quick, I get the impression from the later scene where he says, "Oh yes, our great healer Alice Rivers even went there to help Grover." That gives me the impression that he doesn't even know what Alice is capable of.
It depends on how you read it. I mean, he could be. I think he could be speaking in code. He could very much know that she killed him, and he could be conveying that information by using that. Like, he's not going to outright say Alice Rivers wouldn't kill him. That would be the way he would say it. So I think it could go either way. I mean, I could read that in either direction.
I'm really leaning towards he's just a simple old man who doesn't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, it could be either. It could be either. But anyways, so with this scene, it's interesting that he seems to have this trust in Alice, even though she has been nothing but like torturing him. And it might be, and I think that might be further proof that she is behind it and she is a witch. That I think this is the outcome that she wanted. That these feelings that she's creating in him, this guilt, and leads to a trust in her. I think that she kind of is getting him under his spell in a certain way, which maybe is a good thing for him ultimately. By the way, I love the imagery. I love the scene where like all of a sudden just has this owl comes out of nowhere and it's just like poof, she has an owl in her hand. Like, I mean, that's such a great witchy imagery just to kind of, I mean, I don't know where that owl came from or any explanation, but I thought it was really cool that all of a sudden it's like poof, I have an owl in my hand. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see Alice as controlling him, manipulating. To what end? To me, it does seem like it's for his benefit ultimately, and that she does want this desired outcome of him joining with Rhaenyra. That's what it seems like to me. I think that at the end of the episode, which does imply that she kills Grover Tully, which is a big help to Daemon, should eliminate any theories that she's working with Aemond, because why would she directly help Daemon in that way if she were working with Aemond? So I think that's been totally debunked personally after the ending scene. I just read it as she wants him to go back to Rhaenyra, and it seems like she's Team Black to me, but I don't really know. She may have some other underlying motivations that we're not fully clear on. We had talked previously, I can't remember if it was last week or previous week, about how she seems to be like Mysaria, championing the small folk. I think that was probably last week we were talking about that. So that could be an aspect of it. But I don't know ultimately what her motivations are, but to me it does seem like she is trying to help Damon like work through his feelings, work through his guilt, and ultimately put him back in the direction of um, going to back to Rhaenyra. That's how I read it.
So I will say there's a bunch of theories about the owl, and maybe that she's a warg, or maybe she's like or I don't know, is can they commune with the owl or something like that. But I think my theory, and I think this is definitely true, is that she's a wizard who was trained at Hogwarts. That's definitely, and Brandon agrees, saying Hedwig. Yeah, exactly.
Symbolism.
Considering my feelings about J.K. Rowling, I'm going to have to disavow that theory.
Yeah.
No, fair
enough. The owl is a portend of death. I think it's pure symbolism right there that pops up. An owl pops up, death is coming. This is what tells her that there's going to be a change in the wind because Grover's going to die. I think that's as simple as that. I think that's very straightforward. I also, it's interesting because you're right. I don't think that she is working for the Greens, but I don't think that means that she's necessarily working for the Blacks either. I think more kind of like Viserys back in the old show. I think, she works for the realm. I think she is trying to do what is right. In a way, it's the.
What do you mean, Varys?
Varys. Sorry, sorry. Look, when you just put like one or two letter changes in my old man brain, they'll start to get confused.
Now House of the Dragon is the worst from that. Damon, Aemon.
Well, I remember Rhaenyra and Rhaenys was like getting me for like the whole first couple of episodes, and yeah. So, but I think I think you're right. It's like she serves the small folk. It's more like the realm. She may be helping Damon because that's the direction that he should be at for whatever future going forward. But I don't know if she is necessarily for anyone. I mean, it does make sense that she's more on Damon's side and does want something kind of out of it. But what her actual motivations are, I almost feel are almost more primal, or most literally more connected to the earth, the people around, as opposed to, the whoever's in charge that's going to be the best for the realm is in a way what I feel that she's being driven at. But again, that's just kind of off the top of my head. But yeah, and you're right. I think this does imply for Sir Strong not being as aware of what her capability is when she's just like, oh yes, our grand and wise maester even tried it. And it could be a symbol that he's a little bit of aware, but it also does seem to be, I don't know, he's kind of interesting. And like I said, that one little moment just made me think like, maybe you're not quite the idiot that you are, or you're just like, I don't know, man, y'all are crazy, you need to back off. Maybe that's just it's the way it's things that happens to some people in Harrenhal, man. You just gotta relax. So yeah. I'm curious. I'm hoping that we are find out what more of her motivation is, but I do like the fact that it at least kind of calms Damon down for a little bit, and the fact that we really don't see any more again until this is effectively wrapped up, which I'm hoping means that this whole part will be wrapped up and we can move on to bigger and greater things for the last two episodes.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. She's not on either side, and I think she's more on the line and definitely protecting the realm, as you both said. But I think she's also more on the side of like kind of like a guru, like the person is right in front of them. Gives them personal healing, and that's what she's doing with Damon. That's how I kind of take it. All right, so then we go to King's Landing. We get a scene with the small folk, which is the name of the episode. We get the scene with Ulf and the madam. I can't remember her name. I'm just going to call her the madam of of the brothel. And I also had the guy. I don't remember her name either, but the serving winch we've seen in a past couple episodes. But so this was an interesting scene. I liked this is what I like about House of the Dragon as opposed to Game of Thrones. We get more of the perspective of the small folk, and we've been getting it a lot this season. And here, we get the madam complaining about how she knows that the royals are eating like luxuriously and having banquets and wanting for nothing while everyone else is starving and not getting any food, and how Ulf is very upset with that, saying that just ain't right, and is getting into the bubbling of what's going on. And my series talks a lot about this over in Dragon's Den with Rhaenyra's lot, and we get to see this sort of play out in true form. And it's interesting what I believe it's Ulf. I think in my review, I think I said it was the madam, but I think it was actually Ulf who said that Viserys was actually a good king, that he would still eat great, but when they were in time that the small folk were trouble, then he would do more to help them out. And he seems like, and he says so he's blaming it directly on Aegon and Aemon the Greens, saying that they're terrible rulers and that they seem to imply Rhaenyra would be better. And this is even before she sent the Foon over, because he even mentions, I can't remember which one of them. One of them mentions that the Viserys' rightful heir is not there.
I think it was the madam.
Was it the madam? Yeah.
Yeah, which Diana is that? Brandon says Sylvie and Diana. Who's who?
Oh no, Diana was the serving girl. I thought.
Okay, I thought she was
Sylvie.
Sylvie's the other one. Well, yeah, whoever.
I don't know.
She's the one who, said that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Alyssa, your thoughts on this scene?
I agree. I think it's interesting to get the perspective of the small folk, and we're starting to see. I couldn't tell if this was intentional. We saw so Sylvie's the madam. Okay, Diana is the serving wench who was also the girl that Aegon raped in the previous season. So I was trying to determine if this was like, because last week we saw the girl that Mysaria sent off talking to Diana. And then we see Diana talking to Sylvie here, and then she starts going, well, this is food, this is bullshit. And it just seemed like that was kind of purposeful, that it was plotted out that way, that we're going to talk really loudly in front of everybody and like start getting them riled up. So I wasn't sure, but that's kind of how I read it, that this is what was Mysaria laying the seeds for this to happen, and just have people just start going around talking loudly in public places about how fucked up this is, and when people are starving, it's pretty easy to do. It's a pretty easy thing to get people riled up and angry. So that did seem quite intentional. And yeah, so I guess I don't have a lot more to add to the scene. It kind of builds on, we'll build on this later with scenes that come later in the episode. But I do find this interesting.
Oh yeah, I think it was just a beautiful way to have. Yeah, it's totally Rhaenyra's people going down. It's like, all right, let's start setting the seeds all out for everybody. Look, you're being tortured, being pushed to the side. They're celebrating all of this stuff. Even the old king wouldn't do that. Oh, these new people, I bet if the true heir was here, we'd be taken care of. Wouldn't that be right? You're getting everybody riled up. You're putting all these ideas so that later on, when these start to happen, they're already primed to react. And I think that's kind of the perfect thing. And of course, we're doing it through the characters that we kind of know in a place that we've already been connected, so we can see how these people have already been affected by what's going on and how this is just going to rile them up even more and more. So yeah, I thought this was a nice, beautiful, but straightforward scene to just like, all right, let's lay it all out here, and then we'll just start stoking that fire until it's ready to blow.
All right, so now we'll get to everyone's favorite scene when Rhaenyra is being pestered by Lord Celtigar. And just like he's like, well, I warned you ahead of time. I knew this is a bad idea, and I told you not to go to the Rook's Rest. And I think it was the perfect time to be like, shut the fuck up. But I do feel like it maybe not the smartest thing to do, because she is going to. She said what she says is, something like, "You forget to fear me," or sometimes I don't. I need to remind you to fear me. But I think it's gonna alienate her council members, which, as fucking annoying they are, she still needs them for power, and she can't get a reputation for being someone who's just crazy and awful. But completely understand her frustration, and it was still very satisfying to see that. But it is interesting, because this is coming right off of seeing Sir Darkland burn to a crisp, which he was the Lord Commander of her King's Guard, apparently. So it's a major loss, and it was a traumatizing experience. And she feels a little bit guilty, I think, because it was her plan, but she thought it was worth the risk. But she's very sort of upset and traumatized by that. And then you have this crusty old white guy going like, "Oh, I told you so." Of course, you're going to smack him in the face. But then following that, we see her sort of picking up the sword and like testing it and carrying it around, and Mysaria comes in, and again, they're always very comforting. She's like venting some of her frustrations. So it's really establishing that she's really building a close relationship with Mysaria, and they're making their plans to, rile up the small folk in King's Landing. But I like this little thing that Mysaria says that, "Oh, that looks good on you," referring to the sword. But she seems a little bit embarrassed by that and just like sets it down. But so it seems like she's really getting into she's feeling inadequate for not being trained as a warrior, and we got into this in the previous episode as well. And she feels like these white guys, old white guys, aren't taking her seriously enough, and that she needs to be more sort of violent, I guess, or at least project strength more. So yeah, Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, both of these are basically deal with the ideas: is how do you fight, how do you deal with misogyny, how do you overcome these expectations and viewpoints that, yes, you're the queen, but you're a woman, so really, you need to be guided by the intelligent brains of men, because we always make good decisions. So, I mean, and of course, I think you're right. She has to find a different way to deal with this, because she can't just dismiss people and send them across the river to go find Damon if they're bothering the small council. She can't just smack them in the face if she pushes. Now, the other thing is, it's also, I think she's getting pushed further and further to these points where she is going to lash out. And yeah, she needs to find another way to deal with that. Does she need to be armored? Does she need to put on more of a front? Like, she could have you murdered at any moment. It's like, because that like Aemond or something like that would have like just spun on him and was like, "You talk too much," or something, and just cut him off right there, glared at him with his one eye like, "I could eat you right now," and the guy would shrivel up and shut up. And she just needs to find the way to do that as well. I think part of that is going to be the confidence of her position, which is something that I think Mysaria is doing very well to support her with. And I do kind of like how their relationship is kind of developing in all of this. And also, again, support is that looks good on you, not just carrying the sword, but that look of strength and confidence. And I think that's really what Rhaenyra needs to grasp and be and own more, which in a way is kind of a difference to her youth, because she was kind of the big troublemaker when she was younger. I guess she did things and rode and stuff, but didn't necessarily fight or use a sword. So, and of course, over the past years, when she became a mother and everything else, it became a whole different thing. So, it's like she needs to find that part of herself again. And I think that maybe this connection might help do all of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that guy was annoying as fuck. Like, he was so
Oh, deserved it totally. Yeah.
he was so annoying. He deserved to get bitch slapped. But I do think that she probably should have been handling this better earlier. She let things get too out of control. That's what she even says. Like, oh, I forgot to have you guys fear me, or whatever it was she said. That she probably should have taken more of a commanding presence before. I think she has to really be aware, and I think maybe Masaria is helping with this, but just being aware of what a disadvantage she already is starting out as a woman, and that it's going to take a lot for men to respect her. And I think she kind of allowed them. She kind of allowed her to get out of control a little bit too much. Like, she should have taken more control, taking more charge of them earlier, without having to resort to sending them away. And which, by the way, I wonder if we're going to see that guy. Heron, I thought he would get there by this episode, but I guess they have more realistic travel times than Game of Thrones did, so maybe it takes him a couple episodes.
He'll get there when the ship is done.
Yeah.
So never. Yeah.
I think Littlefinger's transporter isn't invented yet.
Yeah, because it would take him a little while to get it.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But yeah, to not have to like resort to like, if she had taken more command earlier, then it wouldn't have to get to this point. But I totally feel her in that moment. And I don't know if we're talk about the scene with Jace. Jace was kind of annoying me. It was like, well, you're a woman, you shouldn't be slapping. I don't know. It was just I just felt very like.
Well, I'll let you know. I wasn't going to talk about that scene.
Oh, you weren't? Okay. Yeah, I just felt like it was sort of misogynistic, like blaming her, and not like at least coming from a point of view of, yeah, I get it, those guys are annoying, but maybe you should handle this differently. But it was more like kind of finger pointing at her, which I found really annoying. Like, it was all her fault. She was right to react to him, but probably didn't do it the best way. And I think she needs to maybe rework rethink how she takes control of the small council. I was hoping Corliss would help with that, but I think
I was just thinking that. Yeah,
Corliss might go off on his boat, because his boat might actually get finished and he might go.
Yeah.
And there is this scene from the preseason trailer we haven't seen yet, where Corliss is like, "You have the
My ship sail at your command."
Yeah, that's it. That's it. My ship sail at your command. So
you have my ship. And my sword and my bow.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that she has got to recognize that she's just starting at a disadvantage, being a woman, that she's going to be disrespected automatically, and then she's got to learn how to control it more. I don't think she ever should have let it get to this point. But I don't blame her for slapping the shit out of that annoying guy.
And I definitely get the impression, because of the misogynistic nature of the society, that because she slapped him, people would be like, "Oh yeah, she's just a hysterical woman. She's out of control."
Well, that's what Jace's reaction was to me.
Yeah,
like,
where if it was like, if it was a man, if it was Aemon, they would be like, "Oh, he's projecting strength. He's a strong man." So I think there's definitely
exactly. That's why Jace really annoyed me.
You punch, don't slap. That's the difference there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I wonder what Jace meant by when he said, "Oh, my ruler is my mother," or something like that.
Because she said something like, everybody looks at me like their mother and not their queen.
Oh,
like
right.
that, and he said, "My mother is my queen."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, but that's you, dude.
Yeah. I know.
Well, and he's, I think, still in that half position, like, no, I respect you, and you're right, because I think he's getting that connection with his mom, what we got from last episode, but he's still in that point of like, but you're a woman. But they listen, don't. It's like I don't think he realizes how to make that next step in his brain right now.
Yeah, I mean, and also how he keeps, saying, "Oh, you need Damon, you need Damon." She's like, "I'm sick of hearing about Damon," because he seems to be taking that position that you need a strong man to.
Well, yeah, and again, it's the simple solution. Oh, if we just Damon was here, it would fix everything. It's like what?
Yeah.
The dragon, because he's the guy, because people would listen to him. That doesn't solve the actual problem of
Yeah.
that she needs to deal with Rule, because that's actually why Damon is away, because he's doing the exact same damn thing.
Exactly. All right, so then back in King's Landing, we get the small council meeting, and by small council, I really mean small council is just two other guys, and Eamon. Eamon is just like getting rid of everyone, and it's just Laris and that one other dude, Sir Wilder, what's it, Ironwood or
I think Iron Rod or something.
Iron Rod? Yeah.
Sir other guy,
yeah. I think it might be his nickname, like Iron Rod.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's his nickname. But yeah, I think it's Wild is his last name. But anyway, regardless, random guy, and Laris, I think, is actually being wise, and this is kind of getting back to what we were saying earlier about how Eamon doesn't listen to wisdom, doesn't listen to counsel. Oh, Jasper Wild, thank you, Brandon. You always know this, but yeah, because Laris is actually giving him good advice, as we see, and he's like, "Yes, the small folk are starving, they're hungry, and if they're not hungry, that's going to be a major problem for us." And Eamon dismisses, like, what kind of worry? And he gives wisdom about it. I can't remember exactly the phrase Laris says, but again, Eamon kind of just ignores him. And then calls for, "Oh yes, I want you to take control of finding me in hand," or get something about. He said it's something that sounded like he was making Laris a hand, and he was like, "Oh yes, well thank you, my lord." And it's like, "Not you, you toad! Call Otto Hightower," and. Again, it's weird that he's calling Otto Hightower. We talked about this earlier, but because he doesn't listen to advice, and so it seems like Otto Hightower will have this, all this wisdom of calming things down, not going straight to battle, and that doesn't seem to be what he wants to hear. I suppose he just, I don't know. Maybe he does see some wisdom in Otto Hightower, but I'm sure once Otto gets there, he'll just like dismiss everything he says and not listen to him. He just wants more people to be able to dismiss, I guess. But it was interesting how he was just such a dick to Laris, who was actually giving him good advice. Now, granted, Laris is definitely vying for power in this stage, and Eamon shot him down. And we'll talk later about what Laris does next, which is really interesting. But anyway, Alyssa, thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, I believe this was the scene where Eamon was just like, "Well, why are the small folk mad at us? Like Rhaenyra is the one who's keeping them from getting food," and which shows that he doesn't understand how it works. It's like that doesn't matter, dude. Like you guys are the ones in charge. Like Eamon doesn't really just understand. Like Laris has that understanding, where Eamon doesn't. And then instead of listening to someone who understands the situation better than you do, you just completely dismiss it. Now, as far as his motivations for getting Otto, I brought that up a little earlier too. It might just be because, well, that buys him some time, because it'll take him a while to get back there, and so he can do whatever the fuck he wants until then. And once Otto gets there, he will probably dismiss him too. But I think as I mentioned earlier, it might have more to do with he doesn't want Cole as his hand, and Otto just seems like the simple solution because he's been hand before. Everyone would expect it. He's been hand 3-4 different times now. He keeps getting fired and rehired over and over again. So it might just be that he doesn't want Cole to be an Otto, just an easy solution, and he's from far away, so Eamon can do whatever the fuck he wants in the meantime. So But yeah, it's. I think this is just further demonstrates that, as you said, Mark, that Aemond is not a good king, not a good leader, but for different reasons than Aegon.
Yeah, it's funny. I often talk to people about. We hear a lot of people always mentioning their freedoms and their rights, and rarely we get people talking about their responsibilities. Uh, it's usually go hand in hand with that, and we're seeing the same issue of leadership here, which is what Alice was trying to tell Damon is this is not a position of power. This is a position of burden. This is a weight. This is a responsibility leadership. You are to take care of your people, not just wage war and feed yourself and indulge in your own interests and revenge theories. That's not really what this is all about. Um, so I think this is definitely going to be a thing that Aemond will continue to struggle with. I did find it interesting when he was like, yeah, I want Otto Hightower. Because in a way, it's like, well, he's family. He has served and experienced, and he could certainly take care of the day-to-days of operating the realm while Aemond focuses on the war and destruction and chaos and all of those types of things. It would be somebody that he could hand off, that he could basically trust because of effectively, Otto conspired to put his brother and thus effectively, eventually him, into this very position. So I think there was a lot of value to making that choice, and it did surprise me, and I found it rather interesting. As we find later on, the difficulty in actually tracking down Otto seems to imply that he's in hiding. And if he's in hiding, then maybe Aemon's plan is to kill Otto for some reason and take him off of the board completely. I don't know why he would do that, but then again, I also don't know why Otto seems to be hiding outside of just spite because Aegon kicked him away. He should be much smarter to know that things will go bad soon, and you're going to want to be standing by to step in and save the day if you're needed. So, to me, that puts some interesting stuff. I don't know if we're actually going to find Otto tied up in a basement somewhere that Aemond stuck him into. And maybe you're right. He's saying, find me Otto so I don't have to worry about getting a hand for right now. And nobody can come in and take the place that allow me to do the other things. I equally think that is also possible. Because...
Well, here's what I'm thinking, though, is that eventually, and he even mentioned that at the start of this episode, eventually he's going to need to go out on Vhagar. So it seems like he would want someone dependable ruling for him while he was gone. So that's why I think he might want Otto, because it seems like, he doesn't trust Larys and the other puny guys, and he fired his mother and sent Cole away. So it seems like maybe that's why.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, and I criticize Aegon for choosing Kristen Cole and then immediately sending him off to war. Yeah. That's your hand, though. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So maybe it is a strategic maneuver on Aemon's part that he wants the hand who can hold down the fort while he goes off, because he did say eventually he is going to go right off in Vhagar when the time is right.
So I said I think Otto's actually a very interesting choice, and I think that there's a lot of it makes sense in a lot of ways. Just then, why is Otto so hard to find? Well, I don't know. That's not happening for a reason. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think, and again, I don't know the answer because this is a change from the books, but I do think that there's going to be some reason behind why Otto is not answering Alicent's ravens that hopefully we'll find out in the next episode. We'll get some clue as to what's going on with Otto, but I am very curious about that.
Maybe he's the one secretly getting the Greyjoys, and that's why they can't find him, and why people haven't heard back from the Greyjoys, because they're coming around the south side. Sneak attack. I don't know.
Yeah, except Rhaenyra will forget about the Iron Fleet.
And they'll just pop out of nowhere and go, ha ha, and
Yeah.
shoot the dragons down. And then in the next episode, the scorpions are going to be totally useless and the dragons will just destroy them all. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious. So, like, look, if you're afraid of the dragons, why aren't there all these like scorpions being pushed along with your armies and stuff? If you're, either that or you have to do all your battles under trees.
Anyway, anyway, so then we get Eamon going. Oh yeah, because they're in the small council meeting. There was supposed to be another person there. Orwell, he shows up and Eamon's just like, "You're late," and being all pissed off. But he was like, "No, I'm taking care of your grace," and he's recovering. Oh, thank the gods! And Eamon's like, "Oh yes, thank the gods! What a wonderful news!" And he goes there. It's like, and this person down, and Aegon saying, "I don't remember anything," and everyone's pointing out, and this is correct to point out, he's lying. He remembers full well, but he just wants, he wants Aemon to think he doesn't remember anything. It's like, you don't need to kill me, dude. I don't remember anything. And he's sort of like, I think, I didn't realize what he was holding, but someone said he was holding that ball from the meeting room that he put down in the thing.
Yeah, the king's command ball.
Yeah, it was like pressing it down on his wounds.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what he said, but something intimidating to but yeah, I don't know if either of you had any thoughts on that scene.
No, I mean, again, you don't say, I don't remember. What do you remember? Nothing. What do you remember? I was flying on my dragon and then I woke up here in pain. That's your response if you don't actually remember anything. Nothing, man. I don't remember you killing me or trying to eat me or nothing, man. It's not there.
Yeah, I mean, Aegon's in a pretty vulnerable position at that point, so he's got to say whatever he can say to try to, prevent, Aemon from killing him. But yeah, he definitely remembers. I agree.
All right, so then we go up to the Vale again. We see Rhea, and she's with Joffrey. It's weird saying it's weird saying that name, but different Joffrey with the young boy, and he's kind of like, I want my mommy, and he's like, oh well, too bad, I can't have him. But then she notices that there's burnt remains of sheep everywhere, and it was like, wait, what the fuck? And there's a dragon up here, and kind of confronts Lady Jane about that. It's like, oh, so that's that's why you wanted a dragon, right? And she's like, oh yeah, no, that's just some wild dragon that came up here once the war started or whatever. So that's kind of an interesting development. And yeah, we also get news that she's going to Pentos and with the 3 kids, which I don't know. I'm too lazy to bring up the map again, but I was just looking at the map, and the Vale is very out of the way to go to Pentos. It seems like Dragonstone's like really close to it. It's like a straight shot, but I don't know. So why they bother to stop by the Vale if they're not staying there with their dragons? But she doesn't even want those dragons anyway. But anyway, so yeah, so they're gonna head off to Pentos, and she was like, "Oh, I thought you'd be thankful to leave. I didn't think you liked it here." But I was thinking to myself, like, Rhea would like it even less in Pentos because that's where her mother died, and I get the impression she really doesn't want to go there. But yeah, Alyssa, thoughts on this scene?
Well, I think the idea was we're going to send a letter to whatever that dude's name is from season 1, and make sure it's okay. I mean, in the meantime, you need someplace safe to go.
Sure.
And the Vale is very much out of the way, but and I didn't think that they were necessarily planning to take those dragons. If those were the dragons they promised Lady Jane, I would think that they would have to keep them there, even if they're little teeny tiny dragons. But
I thought they would need to be with the boys in order to.
Were they their dragons though? I didn't know.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're
Okay.
one is Joffrey's dragon, and the other is.
But
This
it's
is confusing, but Aegon the Third's dragon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Aegon the Younger is what he's called.
The younger, yeah.
Aegon the Younger. So I don't know. So I heard someone in another video say that Aegon and Viserys were going across, to Pentos, implying that Joffrey stays there. But I don't know if that's true or not in the show. That is the book. Joffrey is in the Vale, and the other two go
See,
Pentos. So but someone said that as if it's true in the show, and I'm not sure.
no, I thought I'll have to watch the scene again, but I thought I specifically remember Lady J saying, "Oh yes, the magistrate has said that the 3 boys can go and
Okay.
their half
Yeah, I
sister."
wasn't okay. That could be
Yeah.
that could be true. Yeah, I mean, I kind of know where they're leading to with this, but it still seemed. I don't know. Like maybe we could have condensed this a little bit. Maybe we would have. I don't know. Like I know because yeah, I kind of have this idea of where they're headed with this, but
Well,
still,
we might have to talk about that in the spoiler section because they're making changes from the book, and I'm not really sure what direction they're going in.
yeah, we'll talk about it. I have an
Yeah.
idea. We don't really know, but
Yeah.
they're going regardless of where they're going with this. They're going somewhere with this. There's a reason why these scenes are here, but I'm starting to feel the drag a little bit. Like maybe maybe instead of having her argue this pointless argument with Lady Jane in the last episode, maybe this scene's happened in the last episode, and maybe we're a little bit ahead in the story at this point. But clearly this is leading to something, and we'll have to wait and see. And then in the spoiler section, we can make some speculation, but I don't know. Like it's leading somewhere.
So, all right. So this is my theory, and it's spoiler free, so you don't have to worry about it. But my theory is that Alan is going to go up with the ship to the Vale, and he's going to pick up Lady Jane and the 3 kids, and they're going to go off on the new colony, and they're going to start a new colony with these children. And so he's going to be called Father, and she's going to be called Mother. If anyone hasn't seen Raised by Wolves, I was making a reference to that show. Anyway.
Gotcha. I got you. I was gonna let you walk off that cliff all by yourself. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because last week it seemed like the two of them had a little strife, but maybe it found a little connection point. And here it seems like they're still in a little like FU terms, which is kind of annoying. To me, this is just there's a dragon up here. We mentioned earlier that Rhea doesn't fly dragons, so obviously she is going to connect with this new dragon here, and she will be its dragon rider. Again, maybe that's not where it's going. I'm just speculating on what they're saying, but yeah, the boys are going off to Pentos, and she'll stay in the area because we're obviously developing a connection between Rhea and the Lady of the Eyrie. So, Jane. So I think. I don't know. That's kind of my speculation is like, oh, this is another way they get more dragons up on their side. But you're right. They could have easily condensed a couple of these together and just moved it on a lot more quickly. You misled me. I didn't lie to you. What are you talking about? Sorry.
All right, so we then get a couple of scenes with Alyssa, and things seem to just be getting worse and worse for her. It's interesting. She talks to Orwell about, have you heard from my father? I've sent him all these letters, and he's just saying, no, still no news. But you do realize like there's a war going on, right? That the Beesberries are, attacking the High Towers in the Reach. And the Beesberries, if you recall, back in season 1, that old dude that Kristen Cole smashed into the ball to kill him, that was Lord Beesbury. And then so he mentions here that, they're not very happy about the fact that Lord was murdered. It turns out. And so it is possible that at least it seems like Orwell is speculating that Otto Hightower is caught up in the fighting that's going on in the Reach involving that, which I thought was because I was waiting for this because they mentioned it in the book, and I was waiting for them to mention something about it. It seems like they should have brought it up during a small council meeting, but whatever. I did find that very interesting, and of course, her other son, Darrin or something like that.
Darrin, I don't know.
Darrin, I think.
Darrin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I know how to
he's
spell it. I'm still not sure how to pronounce it. Yeah.
yeah, he's in the he was in Raised in Old Town, and then you get a scene where she goes out and farewells her brother when he's getting ready to leave with Kristen Cole again, and this was I thought was an interesting scene because it does play. She was asking him about uh Dayron, and he was implying that he's like a very kind soul and a very young boy, and he's like, oh, and then he's much better than his brothers. Turned out better than his brothers, and they kind of speculate that because he wasn't raised in the Red Keep, that's why he turned out better than his brothers. Helena is fine then, but Allison seems to neglect Helena because she's not a good mother. And maybe when Allison's like, "Oh, maybe he turned out well because I wasn't around," and I was thinking, "Yeah, you're probably right." But of course, Gwen had to be like, "No, of course not." And that's not it. But it's also interesting in the scene that she kept looking at Nicole but didn't say anything, so it seems like the two of them are done kaput. So I think I forgot to mention the previous episode, or was it the previous episode where he called her Alyssa, and she's like, I did not give you permission to use my familiar. So it seems like they're kaput, but she still has feelings for him, giving him googly eyes or whatever. But anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you for these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think Allison figured it out. What's the common denominator between Aegon and Aemond? They were raised by you, and Daeron was not raised by Allison, and somehow he turned out to be a nice guy. So I don't know. I do think it has something to do with it. That made me chuckle a little bit, and Gawain is like, no, it's not you. It's the Red Keep, totally. I actually thought that he was being kind of a good guy in this scene. You were kind of annoyed the crap out of me in previous scenes, like as you described him, Mark, as like one of those preppy guys from the '80s movies with the sweater around his, wearing the sweater around his neck. Where he actually seemed like a genuine dude when he was conversing with his sister there. So I did appreciate seeing that side of him. Now, as for her continuing to look at Cole, I don't know. Maybe you guys can talk me out of this, but Alicent and Kristen Cole was a choice that the show made. It was not from the source material. It's something that they decided to add. I'm not saying the point of that ever having happened, like why that storyline needed to exist. I don't know. Maybe you guys can give me some like reasonable explanation, but
to give Alicent something to do.
yeah, because I don't know. I mean, and then to make it so that she wasn't in the room when Blood and Cheese happened, like she was in the books, and then there's a scandalous thing to make her feel guilty that she was having sex with Kristen Cole instead of having Kristen be available to defend her grandkids, or for her to be available. Um, I don't know, but other than that, I'm not seeing why that storyline needed to exist, and I'm kind of hoping. I'm a little fearful that, as we'll talk about the kiss that happens later, that doesn't also turn into one of those things where I look at later and like, why did they do that? So I don't know. That's just a little aside on this scene. But as far as that conversation that she has, I did find that really interesting.
Look, man, if you got to stretch your runtime out, you got to have some of those ridiculous drama stuff, just completely unnecessary. Just take a couple characters, have them just like all looking at each other for long periods of time, like nobody else notices. Because we had this both at the end of the small council scene where she gets dismissed. She's like walking out right behind Cole and looking over like, oh, but I was going to go with him. Okay, I'll come back and talk to David. And now she's coming out. It's like, brother, no, I'm here to talk to you. So it's just kind of distracting. I do hope that it's over with because I it's annoying. I did find this scene with Gawain actually really interesting because yes, they did establish him as a very arrogant, self-assured knight. And now he is like the guy in Vietnam, like on break, just ready to pounce bands up. I think he even actually says a line where he actually gives an honest thing. It's like, well, we do what we have to get ourselves through, right? I think he says something to that effect when she was going off about who should have been better in court and whatever. Um, but to me, this is the sign of being in battle. All of that arrogance, all of that is done. He's just being dragged to possible death, and he's just got to try and get through it. And I don't think he likes Cole at all anymore. Um, I think he just sees him as this guy that's leading us, and I got to follow, and we got to do what he says. But I just want this all to be over with now. This is really the feel that I got off of him, which was a great offset, I think, again, from that arrogant introduction to now seeing someone who is obviously battle weary, and the illusions have all been shaken away, and he's just trying to survive through it now. And I like that they did something like that. Again, it's a small little bit, but it's like all he wanted to do was like, yeah, man, just I gotta go. I gotta go do this thing. And I thought that was a good choice.
All right, so we get these ships show up full of food with the black Targaryen flag, and then it's really interesting. So this food, this is obviously what Missouri was talking earlier is about. Oh, they received our gift, or our gifts on the way, or something like that. I was like, what the hell gift are they talking about? Are they talking about Gendry? No. So the food gets there, and I'm sure there's a lot of theories where we'll theorize it was Gendry. But anyway, so the food gets there, and it starts a riot, which is pretty interesting. We get a couple of scenes of Hugh showing up there. Hugh seems like a stand-up guy, but then he, beats this guy up and steals his food, and I think it shows how desperate people get in desperate situations like this. And also, he was unlike fucking Blood. He was being nice to the dog. He was petting a dog and showing that he was a good guy.
Dog?
No, I don't think so.
I thought it was the same dog.
Yeah, I thought it was too, but a video I watched said it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think
it's just a stand-in for all dogs.
Yeah, it's like it's the quick, way to describe a character. Kicking a dog, that guy's an asshole. Petting a dog, being nice, he's a nice guy.
I think, petting a dog and then kicking the shit out of someone and stealing his food right after that.
Still a nice guy. Because who cares about people?
He's driven by necessity, but he's not cruel. That's the short
Being
hand.
nice to dogs is all that matters. You can do anything to people. But anyway, but no, so that was this riot started, and of course, poor Helena. They really put Helena through the ringer like this season. It's like she doesn't appear that much. Whenever she does, like bad shit's happening to her. She has to watch her child get murdered in front of her. She's forced to ride out in this funeral procession that she hates and doesn't want to be in, and has a traumatic experience. And now she's caught in the middle of a fucking riot. So yeah, they're just really putting her through the ringer, and she was like playing with her bugs before or something. She said something about, oh, this one stopped singing, and people were theorizing what that means. I think that dissembled Darkling because he was singing to the dragon, and then he's stopped singing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That is my theory. But she always has to say this prophecy shit. But anyway, but no, so then they're caught in the middle of a riot, and I thought it was really interesting that the small folk were like, you saying the pale Rhaenyra, she's the true king, and this is probably, or queen, and she was probably, you're right, the scene earlier with Ulf in the tavern was probably foreshadowing this and saying that they're going around telling all this, like not just this one scene, but they're going around telling all the small folk about this and riling them up. And so when they get all this food from her, they're like, yeah, why the fuck isn't she here? Fuck these people, and start throwing fish at them and whatnot. And it was interesting that the riot that gets out of control and the King's Guard don't really know how to handle it because they cut that one dude's hands off, which only makes things worse because Allison's like, don't fucking do that, and she gets stabbed and they have to run away. So yeah, Darrin, we'll start with you for this.
This really got me kind of excited and almost tearful in a moment because they had done a good job in establishing the lack of food. They had the street scenes where they were just like, "Is there any food? I'll even take scraps." And they've got nothing. And yet you turn and you see the sheep being taken to the Red Keep. And I think they did a beautiful job sort of setting that up. And also in that, I finally have nothing left, which you see with our hammer guy before the whole crowd starts running in. But yeah, that moment just when the guy looks up from trying to rake up crabs or whatever from the beach and sees the one ship with food, I was like, oh, see, this is brilliant, and it's happy. It's not like we're not causing problems, we're relieving stuff. And yes, they're technically the reason why there's a blockade, but that is part of battle. She's still remembering the people, or at least that's the message going in. And it's got her banner on the boat. And then he looks up, and it's not just the one boat, it's all of these boats, which of course would have to be because one boat's not going to do much. And so, yeah, it was a really nice progression to then, of course, now people have food. That's going to cause a riot to get the food. That's going to cause the guards to come out to try and reestablish order. And then you get people shouting up, "Rhaenyra's the one that remembers us. Yes, the true heir." And just let things sort of, snowball from there. So, yeah, I thought it was a great way to kind of set that story up and let it all progress and show what the power of actually having the people on your side can be, the importance of the small folk. I don't, and I got to say, I do appreciate Alicent protecting Helena when they got up in the crowd there and they came in and she was just like, no, and threw herself over Helena between to block her from the rest of the crowd before the guards were able to pull them away, which, shows at heart Alicent being a considerate person, and sort of she's not selfishly motivated. She is a protective, motherly type thing. She's just horrible at it for the most part. But I did kind of like that little bit, is that she was still making sure to protect Helena and not just, focus on making sure that she saves herself. And then, of course, yeah, with the guards, what do? You're going to attack the people? You can't attack the people, but of course, then they're just going to overrun you and beat the crap out of you. So it was a nicely done scene, I think, overall. I think it carried the tension really well.
Yeah, I really like this scene too, and I keep thinking about parallels to. I won't get too specific or too political, but I do think about parallels to modern times. That how like just a few episodes ago with the propaganda that Rhaenyra murdered this small child and how that was effective and how everyone was like, Rhaenyra the terrible, she sucks, blah blah blah. And just a few episodes later, it's completely the tide has turned and they're all like, fuck you guys, we want Rhaenyra. And I do see that happen in real life where you see political figures, their approval rating goes up and then sky high for a little bit, and it goes down. Or sometimes it's like, maybe they try to, I don't know, just as a random example, orchestrate a coup against the country and attack the Capitol building, and then their popularity is really low, and then it's really, really high again. And I think that there is a way to manipulate the people to make that happen. And I think the only two characters we've seen who understand that is on the green side, Otto understood that, and Mysaria on the other side understands how to do that. And Otto got sent away by the dumbass Aegon, so he's not there to counter this. I think Otto, if he were present, would understand what is happening and come up with a plan to try to counter this propaganda. But since he's gone, you just have Mysaria. And as I mentioned earlier, Aemond doesn't understand this at all. Well, how come they're blaming us? As Rhaenyra is the one doing it? Do you not watch the news, dude? Do you not watch CNN? Do you know how politics works? I don't know. Like, that's just how politics works. So, yeah, I found it all really interesting from that perspective, that it is like kind of true to how things are in real life. Also, I like the choice to put Alicent and Helena there in this situation. I think it makes the scene a little more powerful, and I think it brings it, because otherwise no one in the Greens is really like experiencing it, seeing it. Um, and the people who are experiencing it are just the silly women who are just brushed aside. No one ever listens to all the weird shit Helena says, and then Allison has just been fired from the council, and nobody cares about them. But they're the ones who are like experiencing it firsthand, and Allison is powerless because she can't go to Eamon and say, "Yeah, this is really fucked up," and he's just like, "Go away, woman." So I thought that was a good choice to make it really real. And it was a powerful scene where she's like, "No, don't!" And then like the dude cuts the guy's hand off, and she's like, "Sheathe your swords, sheathe your swords." And you can see it kind of spiraling out of control, um, as riots tend to do. So I thought there was a lot of really interesting aspects to this scene.
Yeah, so Brandon says Simpsons mob. Yeah, you had someone in there going, think of the children, won't someone think of the children? He brings us love, get him!
Forget the children. There's too much focus on the children. Middle-aged white men. What about middle-aged white men?
Yeah.
We're
all right. So then we get the scene with Laris visiting Aegon, and he's sort of relating to him about his own personal experience and sort of warning Aegon that's how people are gonna look at him by having the injuries or whatever, and people aren't gonna take him seriously. And then he mentions that he's in danger from Aemon, something that I think he knew. Now I watched a review where they thought, oh yeah, well he's being sincere with Aegon and trying to sort of help him out and relate his thing. He can relate to him. I'm like, no, bullshit. He's trying to manipulate him because that's all that Larys does. And I think he can relate to him, but he's using that to manipulate him because Aemon just shot him down and being like, no, fuck you. I don't give a shit about you. So it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go around you to your brother, who is still technically the king, and I'm going to manipulate him. And to Aemon's credit, I think he realizes that Larys tries to manipulate people, and I was like, "Now, fuck you, I have none of it." So, okay, he can't be manipulated. So I'm going to go back to this guy who's in a very vulnerable position. And at the end, Aegon's like, "Can you help me?" And it's like, eating out of your hands, eating and doing exactly what he wanted to do. Alyssa, I'll start with you on this one.
100%, yeah. Larys is the master manipulator, and he has seen that he can't manipulate Aemon as easily. So, oh yeah, I remember someone who was really easy to manipulate, and he is like in a very vulnerable position, so he's going to be just even easier to manipulate. I mean, this is, Larys is just salivating over this situation. This is perfect for him. So yeah, he's using Aegon to look after his own ass, is what is happening here. And I think he would obviously much rather have Aegon be in charge since he can control and manipulate Aegon in a way that he can't Aemon. So yeah, I would totally disagree with this notion that he's sincere in any way. Have you been watching Larys? I mean, come on. No, he's absolutely not. He's definitely doing it for his own benefit. I mean, maybe he was sincere in the story he was telling, but he was doing it for his benefit, not because he wanted some kind of genuine connection with Aegon or some bullshit like that. I mean, of course not.
Yeah, to me, this completely read as hedging your bet. I think Larys is smart, or should be smart enough, to survive through Aemon's, peculiarities. But I think Aegon is definitely a much more malleable king for his position. But I can't think that Larys doesn't see the danger of crossing Aemon. So I would see him in this way as like, well, if we can get the king safe and back in charge, I want to make sure that I'm in his best graces. But I've got to be very careful about how I do it, because he's got to be aware that Aemon would readily just kill him straight out, as opposed to any kind of like manipulatings or things that might be more of in Larys's political field. So I don't think this is Larys's move. I think this is Larys again hedging his bet, trying to see if he can find a way to get himself back in this king back into position so he's in a better way, but not expose himself to wrong Aemon, and at very least be in a position to, if he had to, he can sacrifice Aegon to get himself in a better position with Aemon. So I'm really curious how he's going to negotiate this. Again, assuming that he's as smart as they're laying him out to be. If he's stupid, then he's just going to end up dead in one form or another.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not going to expose himself unless he sees Alicent's feet. I'm sorry.
Defeat.
Sorry, just had to do that.
I saw the joke coming before you finished it. I just pulled it out like
Didn't do anything with his foot fetish this season, but everyone still loves to make feet jokes about him. But anyway, so we get another vision with Daemon, and I found this one really interesting because he's kind of imagining, rather than the previous one where he's reliving an event, he's imagining an event that didn't occur, or at least he wasn't there for it. That his brother, after his wife died, and in the previous thing, he was yelling at her, instead of being there for me, you were out partying and whatever. And so he's imagining if he actually was there for his brother. And so it seems that it'd be the regrets, that he wished that he was a better brother. He wished that he was there for him, and he gets to sort of live it out like as if he actually did the right thing. And I think that this is almost like, I think this last vision is kind of, because the other one was like making him go crazy, but this one I think is going to totally push him to be a new man and go in the right direction. Like I was saying before in previous episodes, if anything's going to convince him to stop lusting after the throne for himself and actually be helpful for Rhaenyra, I think it's the visions. And I think this one, might be the clutcher, the thing that finally pushes him to do the right thing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get 4 or 5 more episodes with him having visions on this bullshit. But
there's only 2 episodes left.
Yeah, I know, they'll go into season 3 and have more visions. But anyway, so but no, I think this is the clincher. But yeah, so then he wakes up and Simon Strong tells him that, oh, sad news, Grover Tully died. And he's like, oh, so sad. What I really wanted to happen happened. I'm so sad about that. But then, as we mentioned before, he was like, oh, yes, we even sent our own healer, Alice Rivers, over. And you can see that, like, as soon as he mentions that, you see the light in Daemon. Daemon's smart enough to recognize, aha, okay. So she went over there and then he died. All right. I see that coincidence. So yeah, that was so yeah, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, first going back to the vision, I do agree. I think that this is going to be the thing that pushes him forward, and combined with him realizing that Alice kind of did what he wanted to happen, that she helped him. I think those things are going to push him back to Rhaenyra. So maybe the Sir What's His Face will show up there and be like, and Daemon will be like, okay, let's go. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but yeah, I thought it was a really interesting scene. At first, I was like, wait, did this happen? I'm like, oh, no, this did not happen this way. It's just his guilt for not being there for his brother. And again, it just seems like, I don't know, this could have been built up to better. Like, I feel like this revelation sort of comes out of nowhere, but I do kind of feel like I'm still glad that we're getting to this point. So I do think we're finally going to see an end to this. I really do believe that, and move forward. And because we do see in the spoilers for the trailer, we do see him in the trailer. Like now he's talking to Oscar Tolley and conversing with the River Lords again. So I think we're gonna get back to focusing on that. Hopefully, we may see another vision or two in there, but I think that the most of the work, the emotional work that Damon has to do, is probably almost done. And yeah, I don't know. I do have to bring this up again. I think maybe it's just because I've watched so much Game of Thrones and so many people in Game of Thrones and in House of the Dragon always just speak in code, like they don't say what they mean. Like and you just read between the lines. I'm just used to reading between the lines that I read Sir Simon Strong as or Simon Strong as being like, oh, we sent our own healer. Alice Rivers there. Like any other character in Game of Thrones, they were. If Lara said that, it'd be like, oh, we killed her. So that's, or we killed him. Alice Rivers went and killed him. Like other characters in Game of Thrones saying that, that's how you would read it. So I guess that's why I'm maybe it's I'm projecting that onto him, and it's not true of him. But that's just a Game of Thrones thing that a lot of characters do. So I could be mistaken, but I still say either interpretation is valid. I think you can read it either way.
Well, I still totally read it the other way. And as far as the characters from Game, it depends on what character, because this is like Varys, absolutely. But if it's like Hot Pie, or or like,
well, see, we don't know Simon Strong though. We don't really know if he would be.
I don't know. I get the impression that he is just the same, always eating pudding and like hobos. I think he is just a simpleton.
He's Hot Pie's great grandfather.
Yes, yeah, there you go. But that's just my guess. But anyway. Oh, Darren, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I hope it's the last of the visions. It does kind of wrap things up. Again, it goes through his regrets and where he's trapped, and this is the opportunity. Is if you could change that, how would that go, and how would you feel on that? That combined with then waking up to actual good news, and this has been settled, and oh. Yes, even a very talented old Maester went in there, and she couldn't even save him. You know, the one that said he'd be dead in 3 days. I don't know that part, but you do. I thought was, a nice little touch. And the fact that he basically just kind of breaks down in tears. He has that kind of emotional breakthrough. So I am hoping that, this is the sign, and we get to see a better Daemon, and that starts moving this forward, because again, this is just dragging out a little bit too long. I like where it's going. I like, I'm curious how he's going to deal with the problems he has created with this new viewpoint. I think that's going to be kind of the real test here, is what happens now that he's gotten the thing that he needed, and how is he going to be able to handle that. But I am hopeful that it does keep things kind of moving in a more positive direction, as the Team Black can be built a little bit higher, while Team Green keeps tearing itself down.
All right, so I got to double back because there's a scene that got deleted from my notes somehow. But we were referring to earlier with Alan and Corlys, where Corlys makes Alan the first mate, which I actually thought was an interesting scene, because Alan was doing everything he could to try to turn it down. He was like, oh, but I don't want, and then Corlys was being kind of like Aemon, being like, oh, no, whatever, that's fine, you'll be, and just ignoring him and being like, no, I'll see you on the boat. And what I think is interesting in the following scene we get with Alan and Adam is that he was wearing like a turban to hide his hair, and then we see him constantly shaving his hair. And then other videos pointed out, I didn't even think about this, is that he has the silver hair. He has the Valerian silver hair and doesn't want anyone to know about it. So that's why. And it's also interesting, the conversation he has with Adam, because Adam seems to be hopeful that they'll be recognized as his sons one day. And he's like, you're ridiculous. It's never going to happen. He has no interest in being the first mate. He's just doing it now because he's ordered to do it. But anyway, Alyssa, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. That idea that he's trying to hide his silver hair, but Adam doesn't have the silver hair. He's got the black hair,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about these scenes other than that. Um, I mean, I think we've seen this dynamic between these two characters before, where Alan is like, "No, no, I'm not going to do it," and Adam's like, "Oh, come on." um, but yeah, Alan is just convinced that there's no way that Corliss is ever going to legitimize them or recognize them in any way. Even though, I mean, Corliss does seem to be like showing hints that he might be willing to do that because by making him his first mate, that he's just maybe a little, you know, not quite ready to make that big step to like, oh, you are legitimized, but that maybe he wants that he does legitimately care for them and does have this fondness for him, and that is why that it's not just because he saved him. That's the reason he gives, but I think that there is some legitimate like fatherly stuff happening. And remember, Rainey's one of the last conversations, if not the last conversation she had with him, she was like, "Why don't you just legitimize them? Like, why don't you recognize them? Like, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Go for it. I think you should do that." And I think, especially now with Rainey's being passed, that probably does have an effect on him. So I feel like he probably is building up to that, and making Alan the first mate is kind of the baby step, the first step toward that, and Alan is not recognizing it as that. Um, but Adam kind of maybe is. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not seeing all of that. He doesn't know about the conversation he had with Rainey's and all of that. But I do think that Adam is maybe onto something a little bit. That, well, maybe this is a step toward us being recognized by our father.
Yeah, I just thought these were both very nice in setting up the dichotomy between the two brothers. How we have their basically two differences. One is given the opportunity and was refusing any of that opportunity presented to him, whether it be his white hair, which he shaves or hides, or the offers of being first mate of promotion under his father, because he doesn't want to feel like he is getting favor. Whereas the other brother is searching to grab any advantage that's offered to them and is wondering, why are you resisting what, we haven't been recognized, but we are still bringing things to the table. We should be at least recognized for that. Why are we being denied our heritage? Which again gives the great setup for what we have at the end here. So I think again that's just really nice. We're just really seeing how the two motivations of these two characters, how they are opposite, and how each one is going to grab those opportunities in a different way. Is somebody going to jump in and grab it, or are they going to poo-poo it off? And one ends up being on a dragon, the other doesn't.
Well, the other is the first mate on the Colossus.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both good positions. They're both, being recognized in a way, just for different reasons, from different directions.
So, speaking of the dragon, we'll get to that scene now. I thought it was a very exciting scene. I can completely understand Adam's reaction that he's just chilling on the beach collecting his crabs or whatever, and all of a sudden the dragon starts coming towards you. You're like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like running from the dragon. I thought it was a pretty intense scene. I like how when he gets in the forest and he looks up and he sees something flying in the distance, he's like, oh, that's the dragon that flew off, and it's like right in front of him and corners him. And, oh, it was just the bird probably in the distance that he saw. And that was pretty neat. And I'm a bit frustrated, to be honest, that they didn't actually show him getting on the dragon this episode, because we know that's what's going to happen. But I think that, but it is interesting because he seemed to have a turn, because he was terrified, as we mentioned earlier. But when Sea Smoke didn't attack, he was like, oh, something seemed to occur to him. And a lot of people are pointing out that Sea Smoke chose him rather than the writer choosing the dragon. And I've heard some theories out there. Darren, we talked about this in the past, I think, in the spoilers section, about how people were saying that Sea Smoke can't get a new writer because Laenor is still alive, and in the books, Laenor was dead, and people think that the dragons have a magic psychic connection with the writer, and there's no way for them to get a new writer as long as their old writer is still alive, which I think it was bullshit. It's a fucking show. They can do whatever the hell they want. They don't need to follow these fake rules. But the people who are saying that are now coming up with the excuse of why the Sea Smoke chose Adams because it's Laenor's brother, so it has to be the brother of his writer, and he kind of recognizes him as Laenor. And I think the psychic connection bullshit I don't agree with, but I think there might be something to the fact that that's why Sea Smoke chose him, though, because he is a half brother of Laenor. Yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts. Alyssa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I kind of think that there might be something to that's and yeah, I agree. Like I think as I referred to it before as nerd rage, I don't about any of that. Like, oh no, you can't bond with a dragon if the original writer is still alive. Like, just shut up. Just like I don't know. I just can't get behind that kind of thing. But and but it did occur to me though that it might be because he is that could have something to do with it because he is Laenor's brother. But it's interesting to me that we have seen Adam looking at Sea Smoke before. He's flown by there plenty of times. So I wonder why he chose this moment to now. Like, well, I'm gonna get my fucking writer because maybe he was like, I don't know if he's like, well, they're trying to get me on this writer, so that reminds me, maybe I should go get a writer. So I'm gonna go get this dude that I want. I don't want this like stupid white dude doesn't even know Valerian. Fuck that guy. Like I'm gonna burn him. But now that reminds me, now that they brought that guy in front of me, I should have a writer, really. So I'm gonna go get that guy that I've been flying by every day when he's digging crabs or whatever. I'm gonna go get him. And yeah, it was a beautifully shot scene. I love how the dragon disappears for a little while, and you just see this bird off in the distance. He's like, "Oh, it was just a bird." That he's there. And it looks like the dragon and Sea Smoke almost had like this expression on his face, like, I'm choosing, you're me, I'm gonna choose you. Come on, I don't know. It was like this very smug expression. So I thought the whole thing was well shot. I do agree. I didn't like the choice to cut it off there. I'm like, come on, like, because then they do show the scene. They do have the scene later where the dude informs Rhaenyra, oh, Sea Smoke has a writer on it. Are they trying to keep this a secret? I mean, it's pretty obvious who the writer is. Who else would the writer be other than Adam? Obviously, it's Adam. So you may as well have just shown him get on the dragon. Like, I don't understand why we're trying to, who could it be? This is a mystery. You don't know. Like, I didn't agree with that choice at all. I think that they should have Adam.
And also, I think it would have been a good moment to see on screen, to see Adam like come to realization, realize, and jump on.
Yeah, I agree. Well, in our spoiler section last week, I said that they might do it like a Daenerys style, like they did kind of the opposite. I was kidding, like I don't think I would have wanted them to do it that way, but something a little more than just screen cuts away, like when we see him lying there terrified. I agree. It would be good to see that moment where Adam first realizes that, I can ride this dragon. I would have liked to have seen that on screen.
Yeah, it feels like a dollars and cents cut. Not too expensive to have him jump on. We'll just imply it afterwards. We got to do a whole big confrontation later on. We got to put our money into that. Look. You start singing to a dragon, you get the music going, you get the fires going, you get him all riled up that he's going to get a new rider, and then you bring up Darkwing Duck here. That's just not, it's just satisfaction. He's all riled up. He's ready to get rid, and he's like, man, I need someone cool. I need someone who's just it's going to be one with. I need someone that reminds me of, there's that guy that smelled kind of like my old writer down there. Yeah, let's go have a hot. I think that's just what happened. I think just got him all riled up, and he was just like, man, I'm getting me a writer. I'm doing it now. I love this. If you can't tell, I was excited again. The whole idea of the Dragon Riders and getting all these people out and unassociated. That's already excited. That we have, the bastard son of the Lord. That now the dragon is choosing him, and he's getting a chance to get on. I mean, this is my kind of storyline. So I'm very excited about this. Was my kind of fist pump moment. Like, yeah. So it was even doubly disappointed that we didn't get to see him climb on and that he's just referred to afterwards, because we're like, well, yeah, we obviously know what's going on here. We recognize that look, man. That's love. That's love and communication going on between man and dragon. So yeah, I was really stoked about this. Again, I just wish they'd come up sooner, and I would have loved to have had this whole meetup settled out now, as opposed to waiting to the beginning of next episode where we're going to have to do this, because that just means everything else is going to get dragged out a little bit more. So yeah, not really appreciating the cuts that they did here, but I did love this scene.
Cool. So then we get the scene with Rhaenyra and Mysaria, which, yeah, the really unexpected scene, massive change from the book. Now, I heard that, and I was just reading something saying that the kiss between these two characters was not in the script, that it was something that Emma Darcy improvised on the spot, which is interesting. So it makes me wonder how this is going to be addressed going forward. But apparently, like, Ryan Condo was like working with both actresses for a while, and they open to different ideas, and so this is something that she just came up with on the shoot day. It seemed pretty natural as well. Now, I heard some people complaining about the fact that Mysaria was just telling her dark past about how she was sexually abused, and yeah, her father repeatedly sexually assaulted her, and then when she got pregnant, he tried to kill her and knock the baby out, and that was her past. And people comparing that to Varys's past as well. And we always see her as like kind of the Varys character as well, and so that kind of connects the two. But people were complaining that it made the kiss seem wrong because she just confessed her the sexual abuse, and the response to that, she wouldn't really be in the mood for like making out after talking about something like that, which I can definitely see that viewpoint. But where I differ is they didn't kiss immediately after she said that. They started talking about other things, and then she was talking about, and she was like, the reason why she was telling that backstory was confiding in her and sort of symbolizing how close it was. But then she started talking more about how she appreciates Rhaenyra and how she thinks she's going to be a really good queen, that she cares a lot, and she even said, like, yeah, I think you'll make a great queen. And that's when Rhaenyra hugged her, and so it felt natural to me. I think it shocked the hell out of me because it wasn't in the books, and I am curious about where they're going to take it and what this means. It was interesting as while they were making out, someone burst in the room, and I don't think he noticed anything. He seemed oblivious to it because they were just like, trying to like hide it, and but it does, yeah. It makes me want. It's a curious. Like, I think it's an interesting thing, but it's curious to think where they were going. And I think this makes sense for Rhaenyra's character as well, because they shown her as being sort of really passionate and not caring about monogamy and stuff like that. And that's kind of trained that way by Daemon to sort of follow her emotions in this regard. So I'm really curious of where they're going to take this in the future. Alyssa, since you want to be Rhaenyra's girlfriend, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I'm jealous. No, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't know how I feel about this, right? Which was what Brandon said, and I kind of agree on that. I don't know. I kind of liked that Rhaenyra had this female, confidant in the world of men, and that like I don't know. I kind of wanted them to just like establish this like strong female bond without it having to turn sexual, like without it having to like turn into a lesbian thing. Um, I don't know. It feels like it could be a little queer baity to me. I didn't know that that was Emma Darcy's choice, which is interesting. Um, but which kind of tells me maybe they don't have a plan for it if it was just spontaneous, which makes me worry that this is going to amount to absolutely nothing, since it was just kind of a spontaneous thing they decided to do. And I don't know. I mean, I get Emma Darcy themselves as queer. I get that. But it's like, that doesn't mean you have to like, does it make sense for the story? I don't know. To me, it would feel more powerful if it was just two women having this bond and being the only two women in this world of men and supporting each other without it having to be a sexual thing. To me, that's more powerful. But I don't know. We'll kind of see where this goes, I guess. But finding out that it was spontaneous doesn't actually give me a lot of hope that it's really going anywhere. So I don't know. I'll reserve judgment, but I don't know. I'm feeling I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. Not actually super thrilled about it, honestly.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, so I'm less interested in it because of the queer representation. I'm more interested in it for the potential of a love triangle with Damon. I think I don't know like that because it's interesting that Mycera has been with Damon before and that she's currently married to Damon. So it's interesting. Maybe they'll get into like a polyamorous relationship. I don't. But since it's improvised, then you're right. Like maybe nothing's gonna come of it. I don't know. But anyway, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page with all of that. It's I mean, again, I like the characters' dynamic. I definitely thought that their connection, the emotional arc within that same all felt very natural, the kind of supportive, and this is my backstory for that. And I think there was an honest recognition when Rhaenyra came up and gave her that hug. There was just this honest recognition of support and being there and all of that. Um, I don't know. They'd make a great power couple, I suppose. Um, and I don't think that it was forced. It wasn't weird, even though, I mean, look, when you're sharing some of the darkest things, you're the most vulnerable, and signs of support can really bring people together more, and that can be turned into very positive emotional connections. So the timing of that actually, that's when these things kind of happen for the most part, folks, when we show our vulnerability in those things and sides and we get that support and we feel that that's there. And we only saw kind of one side of that reaction, but my feeling is that Rhaenyra certainly wasn't just like doing it on her own, that there was a feeling of support within that hug and a closeness there, and that sort of built, almost like a little spider web climb into that connection and that kiss. So that, I mean, that worked effectively. I do have to agree. I'm like, is this going to go somewhere? Is this something, if you are improvising this type of choice, this has very specific long-term ramifications for relationships, for characters. So if it's an improv story, that's one thing. If it's a scripted bit, you've got a couple more episodes, that's definitely going to change the dynamics going forward. So I agree. It's like, is this going to go nowhere? Or is this an early move into something else or a variation on something that will exist? I don't know.
Well, especially since like as I mentioned earlier, I don't, in retrospect, know why we needed Kristen Cole and Allison having sex. Like I don't know what that did for the story. So I'm worried that could be. I'll keep an open mind.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do with it. Maybe they will do something interesting with it, like having the love triangle with Damon could be interesting. Who knows?
These are the ways, to me, these are the ways you stretch things out. You add drama, you add filler, so you can have the scenes of the dynamics, and then is it working, and then are we fighting, and then do we finally come up and say, hey, we got to be supportive, but we can't really do that because we got to stay focused on, man, you got 3-4 scenes right there, almost probably a whole half episode of stuff you could stretch in, and that saves your dragon flying time. So
maybe Damon's next vision is of having a threesome with Rhaenyra.
Yeah, I don't. What is it now, Rhaenyra or young Rhaenyra? I mean, again, it's all.
Maybe
it's
it's season
weird.
1 Mysteria with the big hair, and season 1.
That's right. Brother's just sitting there in the throne, judging as he watches. Yeah, it gets very weird at a point. So, yeah. Again, this is only going to be worth it depending on where they actually go with it. An improv scene for something like this does not really give me a whole lot of supportive hope. But like I said, I don't know what's coming forward, so I can't say whether or not that just adds flavor into things that are already going to be existing, or if that has a really big change.
Well, so the thing that does give me hope about the improv thing is that it was improv, but with Ryan Condal's approval and involvement. So, and even if it's not touched on in the next 2 episodes, they haven't really wrote season 3 yet, or at least when they filmed this, so they could write something for season 3 that could follow up on this.
Sure. Again, I'm not really against it. But I have the same thing as kind of like, do they need to do this? Is this going to be worthwhile? Where are we going with this? So yeah.
I think for me, they would have to make it worthwhile in the future. If it's, as Alyssa says, like the Chris and Cole and Allison thing is like, but do we really need that? If we look back on that and say this and say the same thing, then it would have just been for like shock value or something.
Yeah,
and there's a certain segment of male audience who finds that kind of thing hot, and so if it just ends up, and I know if it was Emma Darcy's idea, I am certain that was not the intention behind it at all, but you got to be careful not for it to end up turning into that. Brandon mentions he fears it's a ploy to get more viewers, and if it was Emma Darcy, that probably wasn't the idea behind it, because they wouldn't care about that. They would be more interested in
they said in an interview that it just felt right in the moment. They were just going with it.
But if they don't do something with it, it could turn into that, whether that was the original intention or not. It could end up just being just a meaningless thing that ends up looking like a ploy to get viewers, whether it was intended that way or not.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, so then the what's his face Sir Interrupts a Lot comes in
Interrupts a Lot.
and interrupts them, and it's like, oh yes, there's sea smoke is flying over the Driftmark, and she's like, yeah, duh, that's not new. He's like, no, but there's a writer on board. And it's interesting that the first thought was the Greens. It must be the Greens. And I feel like this is kind of cheap stakes, or trying to create cheap tension, trying to create a cliffhanger, like, oh my god, is it the Green? No, obviously it's that guy we just saw in the previous scene who is right next to the goddamn dragon. But I do like how Rhaenyra just gets on the dragon and fucks off, because everyone's like, no, you can't go on your dragon, no, you can't. And even that night dude was like, oh, do you want me to assemble the council? And she's like, nah, fuck those guys, I'm just going off of my dragon, fuck you all. Which I do like that. I like that call to action. I do think that the cliffhanger ending was maybe a little cheap, but no, it was still interesting though.
Yeah, as I said, I don't like that they try to make this like a mystery. Ooh, who is it? I mean, we know who it is, and I don't know. Were they seriously trying to misdirect people into thinking it could be the Greens? I mean, if you weren't paying attention, maybe you could think that, but it just seemed pretty obvious who it was. So I don't know. I mean, I could see, Rainier. Maybe Rainier would think that it's the Greens because they did not think of the small folk at all. They didn't. They were like, oh, well, only people of noble blood could possibly ride dragons because that's the tact that they took. That it's got to be like Sir Darkland. Can't be, some dude who digs up crabs and works on a boat for 3 years. that
Well, I'm surprised that my Syria didn't think of that because
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
more small
totally.
folk mounded. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, in fact, kept expecting her to like suggest it.
Yeah,
Oh,
me too. I kept
like,
expecting.
why didn't maybe you
Yeah.
should look to maybe some small because there's a ton of Targaryen bastards out there. We all know that. Like, there's just bastards absolutely everywhere, and bastards of bastards, and like, there's Targaryen blood all over the place out there amongst the small folk. So I'm surprised that they didn't think of that before.
Yeah.
And that when they hear of a dragon rider, it doesn't even occur to them. Like the only thing they could think of, oh, it must be the Greens. Um, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I did like it. It's fine. I liked it. I wish that they didn't make it this like big.
Yeah,
Who's
I wish they did. I think by saying, "Oh, we think it's the Greens," is fine, but by ending the episode there, I think that's what I don't like. It
Yeah,
makes it
yeah, because it's trying like I don't know, insults our intelligence as viewers.
yes.
Like we fucking know. Whether you read the book or not, you know that Adam got on the thing. You don't need to read the book. It's pretty obvious that Adam is the writer.
Well, and you get a better bookend because it starts with a failure and ends with a success. And that should be recognized in there, and it's not. It's held for a, hey, did it happen? Do you know? Is it someone else? You're just like, yeah, like you said, no, it's obviously the guy we just saw. Why? A mystery is not just withholding information. And I think sometimes people fall into that. It's like, no, there's misdirection and stuff that's involved in a mystery. There is none of that here. We all know the answer. You're just not admitting it. And that's, I think annoying. But hopefully, at the very least, we'll kick off the next episode with this. We can get out of the way. But yeah, I don't know. These are the things that just make me question. It's like I'm not entire, and I think that may be part of the frustration with this season overall. While again, there's a lot of great stuff in it, I don't really know what the goal of it. I don't know what the purpose of this season is, unless it's going to be, well, we have no dragon riders, and then we do. But that's not even brought up until 3/4 through the season.
All right, so I guess we'll end our discussion on this episode there. Alyssa, you still want to stick around and do a brief spoiler talk? Yep. All right, cool. So, but I'll say goodbye to anyone watching who hasn't read the books and doesn't want to be spoiled. And please don't be spoiled if you haven't read the books. And this includes Darrin. Darrin, thank you so much for joining. As always, if you would just want to give a quick shout out of what you're up to and
thanks as always. Looking forward to being back next week so we can tackle the next episode. But if you guys have watched The Boys at all, I did a first half discussion with Rob over on Smirking Gun Reviews, and we're going to do the second half of the season tomorrow night, Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific, 7:30 Central Time. I think that's right. Over on Smirking Gun Reviews. So that should be a fun little discussion. If you guys enjoyed The Boys, had some questions, want to share some thoughts, join us. That's tomorrow night. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Alyssa, Mark, have a good spoiler discussion.
See you later. All right, so you got to give the book spoiler warning. So yeah, anyone watching haven't read the books, now's the time to jump ship because we're getting into spoilers now. All right, so I heard again this thing again about there being 5 seasons, and someone even said that that's the reason why they cut it back to 8 episodes is because HBO wanted more seasons. Is they were like, we can't prolong it that way, but what if you have shorter seasons? But I don't know that. I don't know if there's any merit to that. But I'm actually thinking now that 5 seasons is possible because of how freaking slow this season's going. And I'm thinking, wow, yeah, if they go at this pace, I'm sure they could do 5 seasons. Like they could have Rhaenyra take King's Landing at the end of season 2, and then she doesn't even lose it till the end of season 4. They could stretch have 2 seasons with her going around, maybe going up to the balcony on the Red Keep and looking at the ocean every episode. And they can have Corlys build another boat. Whole season.
I don't know. I mean, I won't say that season 5 of 5 seasons would not be possible, but I still go by what is official, what has been said officially over and over and over and over again. It's been 4 seasons, and so until I hear differently, I'm going with 4 seasons because that's what they say. And if I hear, and maybe we may hear in the coming months that actually we're considering 5 seasons, then I will go with it. But until then, it's still a 4-season show because they have said that officially on several occasions that it's a 4-season show.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean it won't change. It doesn't mean that it won't end up being 5 seasons. And certainly the way that they're stretching out the story, they could make it into 5 seasons if that's what they were going for. I think it would be more concise if they could do it in 4.
Yeah, I hope they do it in 4. And
Yeah.
I think some people are thinking it wouldn't be possible doing 4 with 8-episode seasons, but I think totally possible.
Totally possible. I think they're going to need to pick up the pace a little bit in season 3, but yeah. But I do still believe that they have to end with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing. I don't think you end it any other way. I no longer think that they can dedicate an entire episode to that because they don't have time for that. But
no,
certainly the latter part of episode 8 will focus on that. But I don't think it'll be like the whole episode of them taking.
Yeah, I don't think I ever thought it would be the whole episode. See, I assumed that they would be like the episode would start with building up to a big confrontation between Aemon and Daemon in Harrenhal, and they'd be like, "Oh no, Aemon's going to Harrenhal." Oh, and then towards the end of the episode, Aemon gets there and it's like, "He's not here," and then they cut to everyone taking over King's Landing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it would probably be something along those lines.
So I would think that they wouldn't build up or they wouldn't even hint at it. They would just like surprise you with it. But that's
well, they're gonna have to hint at it. I feel like I don't know.
Well, yeah, but not overtly like
yeah.
Have Rhaenyra being like, "We're going to King's Landing next."
Yeah, I mean, I can see them doing a misdirect where it seems like Rhaenyra and Daemon maybe are still at odds. Maybe they don't show them completely resolve their differences, and then all of a sudden they're going to King's Landing together. Yeah, I don't know. So I had a couple questions for you.
Sure.
First one is related to Aemond. We know that he's going to take Harrenhal. We know in the book, Alice Rivers was his lover.
Yes.
Is that still going to be the key? Do you think that she's going to like make Aemond have all these visions and treat?
Oh yeah. So that's what I was kind of hinting at earlier when I was trying to say in a spoiler-free fashion is that I think she's just whoever's there in front of her, she's there as a guru to help them work through their shit. So I don't think she cares about whether it's Daemon or Aemon or whoever it is. She's gonna be like Aemon's gonna have all these wacky visions, and she's gonna work on his character in the same way she did.
That's Aemon is going to be less susceptible to them, though.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm wondering how they make them lovers, or if they're going to still do that, because in the book, each Aemon and Daemon had a lover, and Nettles has been confirmed to at least not be in season 2. I suppose they could try to retroactively introduce her and not have her ride a dragon, but I don't know. Without Daemon having a lover, do they still have Aemon have a lover? And does it make sense for her or for him to be with Alice Rivers in the show? I don't know if I see it. I don't know if I see it.
I think Nettles is gone. So if she's not going to ride a dragon, I don't think she's going to be in the show.
So then that takes out Damon's lover, and so does Aemon still have Alice Rivers?
So maybe Damon, like they introduced a new character that Damon.
Why wouldn't they just not have Nettles then? I don't know.
Because well, they're
I don't
definitely.
think you'd take Nettles out and replace her with a completely new character. I just don't see that happening.
Well, but Nettles it was defined as a dragon rider, and I think it's confirmed that she's definitely not going to be the rider of Sheepstealer.
Yeah.
So I think if they're not going to have her be the rider of Sheepstealer, I think she's just not going to be in the show.
Well, then Damon doesn't have a lover because you don't take her out and then replace her with somebody
Well, they
else.
could have another character that serves another purpose.
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's possible. I'm not saying that's definitely what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But I think that you could have like Damon not have a lover and Aemon still does with Alice. But
yeah,
I could see them changing that too. I don't know. I could really see it either way. But it is interesting if Damon doesn't have a lover, then it is going to kind of change. Well, like the whole thing in the book about Rhaenyra being jealous of Damon ordering Nettle's death, I did not see that happening in the show anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was not just she was jealous of Damon.
She wanted to kill the bastards. Yeah.
She wanted to kill the bastards. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see that happening at all. I think the more the show goes on, the more it is going to diverge from the book, because this like we've talked about this before, but this crazy, jealous, mad queen Rhaenyra in the book, who not only orders the death of all his bastards, her allies, but orders Corlys to be thrown in the black cells, which automatically eliminates her navy and gets. I mean, it's a really dumb move, but in the book, it's portrayed as she's just mad and not thinking clearly. I don't see show Rhaenyra ever getting to that point, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll get her there somehow, but
part of me thinks they're kind of hinting at that with her like slapping that dude and getting really angry and frustrated, that there might be like starting her to become a bit.
Well, that would piss me off, because that's just reinforcing this idea. Although women's like actually fighting back, that means they're mad. That means they're going crazy. Like it
It'll
can't
be the whole Daenerys thing all over again.
Yeah. So I hope not.
No, I hope. Well, I think that maybe they could do a version of something that happens in the book, like not that exactly, and they could chalk it up to history just got it wrong or whatever. Like she could want, maybe she wants Ulf and Hugh killed because of the betrayal, but then people misunderstand that think she actually wants to kill Adam too, and he runs away, and I guess it's something like that, like a variation of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to see Hugh betraying her. He's like such a nice guy, but I mean, I can more see.
Oh,
him.
he stole the food from that one dude.
Yeah, it's for his family. So yeah, I think if he thought it was the benefit of his family, he would do it. So yeah, I can see that happening. Speaking of them, there's still this scene where they're all sitting around the table. When is this happening? Because I'm trying to. Is that going to be at King's Landing if she already takes it? Like, how does this happen?
No, I think it's in the trailer. It looks like Dragonstone.
But how? When do they get there?
So I was looking at the trailer for next week's episode, and there's a very brief. You got to pause it to see it. Of a bunch of, I think it looks to me to be that same place we saw this episode where those boats showed up and with the food, and you see a bunch of people getting on a boat. So my theory, my guess would be when they find out Adam can be a writer, then my theory would suggest, we can get Targaryen bastards, and we can find a bunch in King's Landing. And so she gets her spies to find them out, and they send boats over for them and take them over to the Dragonstone.
Okay. So with King's Landing, the city being like locked up, that doesn't like count the bay. Like you could still theoretically escape on water.
Yeah, it seems that way.
The city was locked, and yet they can receive these boats from.
But most people don't. Yeah, because most people don't have boats, though.
Yeah, but so the city is not walled off on the seaside, on the bay side, I should say.
Yeah, because they got all that food, so it had to
Yeah,
be. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think they need to let people go out and fish to. But yeah, so that was my thinking, is that next week is when they finally bring in Hugh and Ulf to Dragonstone, and they're probably gonna have a bunch of people die, but they're going to finally get the dragons. And I think that scene with them eating around the table might even be episode 8, or maybe it would be the end of next week's episode.
yeah.
But because you had also had that scene in the trailer with Jace being like, well, if anyone can ride a dragon, then how will the Targaryen name mean? And so I think that, to me, I assume that was in response to Rhaenyra deciding to open it up for bastards to.
Yeah.
But what I want to know, I want to talk about Rhea, because this is the big question mark for me, because I was so expecting Lady Jane in this episode to be, oh yeah, we call that dragon sheep stealer. Like, I was expecting to hear that, because I think it's very obvious that, because in the book there was not a dragon in the Vale, and it showed burnt sheep, and so I think it's very clear that they're going to give Rhea sheep stealer.
Rhaena. You mean Rhaena?
Is that her name, Rhaena?
Yeah,
I thought it was
Rhaena.
Rhea.
No, Rhaena with an N.
Oh, who's Rhea then?
There's no Rhea on the show.
Okay, I don't know. Rhaena, all right, whatever. But yeah, no, I think, because that was your theory, right? That she would end up with sheep stealer.
Yeah, that was one of my predictions, and I think it's 100%. I think it's definitely happening. It does still feel like, oh, we're slowly crawling there. Like, I feel like we should have just had this scene last episode. I don't even think we need to just have the Rhaenyra or the Rhaena Lady Jane scene that we had last week, but it just feels like we're slowly getting there. But it's 100%. Yeah, and I don't think they needed to name it. That's sheep stealer. That is absolutely sheep stealer.
I know, yeah, but I just thought it would have been cool. They were like, oh, we call it sheep stealer.
Yeah, but I think very slowly crawling toward that. But that, yeah, I can get a prediction correct.
But so my question is, because she's still planning to go to Pentos with the 3 kids, and in next week's trailer we see her, like, they seem to be walking towards the boat. So is she going to not go and ride sheep stealer instead, or is she going to go and take sheep stealer with her? Like,
maybe as they're walking toward the boat, sheep stealer comes in, and then she ends up riding sheep stealer right then and there. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know.
Because, yeah, I mean, I don't know. They don't have to stick strict to the books, but in the books, wild dragons were hard to ride, and the only reason that Nettle got sheep stealers because she kept feeding it sheep for like a couple of weeks before getting him to trust her. But I guess they could change that and just be like, oh, this dragon just wants to ride you or something.
Yeah.
But
maybe she like ends up riding sheep stealer in order to save the kids. Like, maybe that's
see, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that maybe she takes sheep stealer with her, and because in the book Aegon gets on his dragon and rides away, but he's way too young, and his dragon's like this little thing. So if they, because it seems like, because I thought they might change up the thing with Aegon and Viserys getting captured, but it seems like they're setting up for that.
Yeah.
Like the whole,
I didn't think they were ever going to change that, because that's too important. Like, I think that but they would just have to find another way for Aegon to escape, because he doesn't. By the way, Mark, you saying Aegon the Third is a spoiler, because they only put second and third on kings. So
really?
Yeah, because there's been a whole bunch of Aegons, but they only get the numbers by their names if they're royalty.
Well, god damn it. I didn't
I meant to
realize
tell you
that.
that when you said it in one of your reviews recently, and I'm like, oh, you just gave a spoiler for anyone who picks up on that. I don't know how many people pick up on that, but yeah, there's a lot of Aegons. I mean,
Yeah.
probably the only people who pick up on that read the book anyway.
People
so-
read the books, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I didn't even realize that.
So you gotta say Aegon the Elder and Aegon the Younger, because if you say
well, it's hard to differentiate. They all have the same fucking name.
well, Aegon the Elder and Aegon the Younger is the way they're differentiated in the book.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that they only give numbers to kings.
Yeah, so saying Aegon the Third indicates that he's going to be king, so you got to avoid saying that.
Okay, jeez. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah. So if she has Sheep Stealer, and so that might explain why, and she escapes with Aegon, and maybe Viserys is unable to escape. But the thing is like, I don't think that is necessarily important to keep, because the Viserys thing isn't resolved until well after the events of the dance.
Yeah.
And that's why I was thinking the show might skip it entirely.
Yeah, but they still got to stay true to whether it's on the show or not. I feel like they still need to stay true to the basic lore of like what actually happened. You can't change, even if they're not going to show it on the show. I don't think that they can change, because Viserys ends up eventually later in life becoming king himself, like after he comes back. Like, I just don't, even if they don't show it on the show, I think they still have to keep the lore.
I just don't think that would change that much of it. They could just say he was hanging out in the Vale the whole time. That wouldn't really be that big of a deal.
I know, but the whole thing is he gets away for a while and comes back. Like, I don't know. But anyways,
yeah.
So I mean, didn't the Aegon thing? Did that? Wait, my memory is off. Did that not happen during the Battle of the Gullet, or that was before the Battle of the Gullet?
It was like, yeah, it was like right. I think it was like preamble. Like the boats were on their way to the Battle of the Gullet, and they intercepted that boat, and then they continued to the Gullet from there. So
yeah, well, I mean, if she rides Sheep Stealer as Sheep Stealer is flying over the water, then I mean they would need more build up for her to be able to ride Sheep Stealer. So they definitely build up for her to ride Sheep Stealer, anyways.
Yeah, so if they're saving the Battle of the Gold for next season, which it does definitely look that way, especially now, then I think this season will just. It's hard to say, because if they're getting on the boat next episode, then yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work. Maybe they don't get on the boat next.
Well, that's what I was saying before. Yeah. That maybe Sheep Stealer rides it right before they get on the boat, and then somehow she rides Sheep Stealer before it doesn't get on the boat. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here.
Well, yeah, maybe they don't get on the boat because she starts riding Sheep Stealer.
Yeah. In the book, it's only Aegon and Viserys, is not Joffrey and Rhaena.
Yeah, Joffrey stays in the Vale, but they changed that.
And Rhaena doesn't go to
yeah. Rhaena stays in the Vale as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what their plan is for this.
All right. Well, that's all I had for book spoilers.
Yeah, I'm good on book spoilers.
All right, cool. So, yeah, thanks everyone who joined, who sticked around for the book spoiler section. And Alyssa, if you want to give a shout out of what you're up to.
Basically this every week. That's the main place you can see me. But I do have a channel, Alyssa Jean's Reviews, where I did Star Trek stuff in the past, so you can go check out all of that. And I'll see you back here hopefully next Monday to talk about episode 7.
Cool. And if you're finding me for the first time, my name's Mark, channel Enchantment of Eternity. Do these House of Dragons live discussions every Monday, and then every Sunday night release my quick review of the episode, and also covering Star Trek The Next Generation, currently in finishing up season 5. So yeah, be sure to check out my channel for that. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.